Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Bums and the Bleachers Chicago Cubs podcast. It is the north side of the Chicago sports bums. While they talk White Sox, we talk Cubs over here. The Dram Daddy is normally the one running these things, but he is out on assignment this week, so called on a very special guest. And if you're on Twitter and you follow the Cubs, you may know this man, Mr. Adam Kirshner. Welcome to the show, Adam, and I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Absolutely. Yeah, you did me a huge favor because you reached out to me on last week, I think on Tuesday, when I found out that my usual co-host John is going to be out of town, and I kind of had a little bit of a rotating cast of ideas for guests to have on the show. I had previously had Will Chase, who's a good follow on Cubs Twitter if you don't follow him already. He's done a couple shows with me, had some fun with him, but reached out to you. You reached out to me when I kind of needed you, and it was a match made in heaven. So glad to have you here. Just kind of break the ice a little bit. Tell the people a little about yourself and what your origins are, where you're at now. Like where do you see this Cubs team after at this point of the season after the trade deadline?
Yeah, I'm Adam. I grew up in Deerfield, Illinois, but at 10 years old, we moved to New York. My dad worked his whole life at Sears, so he worked in the Sears Tower and then got another job, so had to move. But, he raised me as a Cubs fan. I have memories of my first game, even have this little coin I got of Ryan Sandberg for my first game that I pulled out just to share, so it's pretty cool.
Oh,
nice. I've always just been a loyal Cubs fan. I only get to see a few games a year when they play the Mets. If they play the Yankees, drive down to Philly.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll come in once a year at Wrigley to go to games. But that's all you can do when you live far away.
I was going to say, we'll be talking about this player somewhat soon, but I know you had a little meet and greet earlier this year with a couple Cubs players, and one we'll discuss later. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so we won a charity auction for Ian Happ's charity, the Happ Foundation.
Nice.
We had a family member pass away, and she was a big Cubs fan, my aunt, Adrian. And just with like the inheritance and all that and the back and forths, she just always, this is the type of thing she would always want to do. So I saw the auction go up. I was like, yeah, let's meet Ian Happ. He is one of my favorite players on the current team, and put in this auction. I put in a very high bid that I was praying I was going to not have to get up to.
Right.
I don't think the word of mouth was very big, so I fortunately it was in my price range. So took my dad, my stepmom, my cousin Ilan, and so three of us flew to Wrigley, to Chicago. Ilan lives in Chicago. Converted White Sox to Cubs fan now. And,
there you go.
Did my part. And, we came down. Abby, who represents his charity, Dansby's, and even Anthony Rizzo's. So she worked super hard, helped us, brought us down. We spent a lot of time with Ian. Ian was so nice, and just my dad, who just has not been into baseball for the long, he is, but to have a conversation just isn't happening. And ever since meeting Ian, he's like, how's Happ doing? How's Dansby doing? Because we met Dansby as well. So it's we're going to talk about it more, but the kindness, that will always go a long way with me with players, and, which makes it harder when you see them not contributing. So,
for sure.
Right. So,
when you have that personal connection with a player, it does get a little different. You're a little more lenient with them when you see them struggle and everything. I can definitely relate to that, because I was someone who, when I was 11 years old, if you remember with the Cubs caravan, when that was a thing, the week leading up to the convention every winter, one of the stops that the caravan made was actually at a building that my grandma lived at, kind of near Wrigley Field. And that year, there happened to be an appearance made by Nomar Garciaparra, Michael Barrett, Pat Hughes, Dusty Baker, I think Michael Wirtz. This was 04 going into 05.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you feel old. I was 11 years old at the time.
I don't feel that old from it, but I was in college.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, and then I remember like kind of the next year that, Nomar, he got off to kind of a slow start, the groin injury in St. Louis. And,
Mhm.
it was one of those things that kind of made you sad that he wasn't around, not just because,
I
he was
know.
a great player during his prime, but also that, you met him and he took the
Yeah.
time out to be so gracious to you. And,
Yeah.
you want to root for that kind of guy. So
Yeah. I
absolutely.
went to UMass, and when we got him from Red Sox, they were all like, couldn't believe it and
Hmm.
heartbroken and
Yeah.
really heartbroken. And I went to a game at Fenway. Went to a Yankees Red Sox game, which is always like,
Oh yeah.
back then.
Especially during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they gave like these poster signs, and it's like, we still got Nomar. And I'm like, and I had it, and then I'm like, no, we got Nomar now. So it was like, and my friends were like, of all the things you have to keep and actually get, but it was fun. But a lot of people forget, in '03 when everything that happened, the
Mhm.
Red Sox blew it as well about 10
Oh
minutes
yeah.
later.
Oh yeah,
It
they
was
did.
like Cubs Red Sox World Series. It wasn't just Cubs going to
Yep.
World Series.
It,
It was
it was
Cubs
going to
Red
be
Sox.
the battle of like the two. Well, I mean, the White Sox drought was longer, but like
Yeah,
the battle of like two teams with like historically long droughts like that would have
yeah,
been like the most watched World Series ever if it happened. And then lo and
yeah.
behold, none of them wound up making it there. Yeah.
But just the timing of all that was like I hate to relive stuff like that, but I could relive that night. But it also made me into a bigger fan. When you want it so
For
bad,
sure.
you
Yeah.
just become
See,
obsessed.
I told this story many times that like you talk about making you a bigger fan. So I was born and raised on the southwest side of Chicago until I was
Okay.
12 years old. And I was still living there in '03, and I was still living there in '04 when they choked down the
Mhm.
stretch, and I was still living there in 2005 when the
Oh,
White Sox won the World Series.
yeah.
And I will never forget walking into class the next day. I'm one of like three Cub fans at this in my class of 25 at this Catholic elementary school on the southwest side, and I got all these like Southside Irish mouth breathing little assholes just rubbing it in my face, being like, the Sox won the World Series before the Cubs did. When are they ever going to win one? But
Yeah.
I do feel like growing up in that environment, it kind of made me a bigger Cubs fan than I probably otherwise would have been if I'd grown up on the north side, because like I had to be that much more passionate when I was surrounded by like the opposition like that.
Agreed. And
Yeah.
witnessing in '04 when the Red Sox won the World Series, like my friends, like people in Boston knew their Red Sox. They knew all 25 men, the
Oh yeah.
bullpen. It was like I had never seen anything like that. So I just wanted to like be that guy. Because like, let's be honest, most Cub fans, will be like, you say, oh, you got Ryan Rolston coming in. That's great. They're like, who? It's like, and it's good, but it's like you don't know,
Right.
you
Right.
just don't know who they are.
That guy building up a cup snake in the bleachers doesn't know who the hell Ryan Rollison is.
Exactly. No, but you know what I mean. It's like, but they knew everyone, so it was really. But after they won the World Series, just in 10 minutes ago, and be like, well, I guess your team's the only one that sucks now. And I was like, thanks. I was rooting for you. Thank you so much.
Oh man! As my buddy Sean points out, they were also 5 outs away from clinching the American League pennant in '03. Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
didn't even think about that, but that was Game 7 that they blew it, right? That was the one that
No, it was early too. I believe it
was it. Maybe
they
Game
were doing
5.
2 games.
Whatever the game is that like Pedro went deep into, that like his pitch count was crazy high, and then like Tim Wakefield gave up the home run to Aaron Boone in extra innings. I don't know exactly which game that was, because I mean I was 9 years old at the time. I was way more locked in on the Cubs. I didn't really know the rest of Major League Baseball like that. Sean points out it's Game 7. Okay,
Game 7.
so
But Game 5 or 4 or 6, they blew it too. Like theirs wasn't Game 7, I don't think, because wasn't the Bartman Game 5 for us? Because
no, Bartman was Game 6.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe they were Game 7.
Yeah.
I don't remember anymore. I mean, yeah, I remember Game 7 because the Kerry Wood homer in that, which was probably the loudest Wrigley ever got.
Yeah. Well,
Except for
Yes, except for that. I would say for me though, from that era, I mean, I was
Yeah.
at a game maybe a week before that, game 1, when Sammy hit the home
Oh, yeah.
run, to tie the game against the Marlins, game 1 that they wound up losing. But that was like the loudest I had ever heard at that point. I didn't get to go to any of the other games
Right.
against the Marlins, but that was definitely loud for me.
Yeah.
What
Let
up,
me tell you
Tyler?
something.
My
Let me
guy?
tell you, no joke. I went, I think, 0-41 at Cubs games until 2006, ironically.
Ooh.
And I saw Rich Hill throw a 2-hit or a 4-hit shutout, complete game
Okay.
shutout. And that was the first time I ever saw them win, ever. And like, I never, against
That's
Yankee, or like wherever I went, I never saw them win. And then we're good now. We're good now.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe the curse was you the whole time. I don't know.
I've been blamed for many things, but not that.
Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to someone in the comments here, Melissa, who does a really good job of like kind of cultivating a group of Chicago sports fans called the Fourth Space. Check their work out on Twitter if you want, because they're doing some amazing stuff. They put together some group outings for Sox games, for Cubs games, for Bulls games. I think they're trying to get to the Cubs home, or not the Bulls home opener later this year. So for those of you watching, check out the work she's doing, because it's very good stuff. My guy T Guns that I saw at the Cubs game on Wednesday. What's up? Appreciate you watching. Yep. Alrighty. Sorry to cut you off, Adam. Do you have any?
No. We have so much to talk on. Like, I guess you're asking about me. I actually worked at WWE for 15 years as a producer. I helped launch the WWE Network. I actually got to produce Ryan Dempster and Bob Howery in a backstage segment at WWE Raw. Yeah, which was
that when they were they at what, Allstate for that, or?
Yeah, Allstate, Rosemont Horizon. Come on, the Rosemont Horizon.
The Rose Horizon, if we go back that far enough.
And I got to do them, and then like Mike Fontenot came, and then it was just this really weird thing where I became like the crowd guy for all the baseball players. So like Josh Fogg, Bronson Arroyo, all these people, I seem to like take them to the seats and get them backstage, and yeah, 15 years, no longer there now though. It was just one of those like weird things. Ryan Theriot was supposed to come, but he had an autograph signing. But later on, he was a big WWE fan, so we connected, and we chat here and there. Not for a while, but like, I know he's not the most liked former Cub, but again, when people are good to you, you appreciate them. So
that's true. You should get my so I do 2 podcasts. My other podcast I do with the co-host on that, my guy Andy Dolan from pointlessexercise.com. Don't mention the name Ryan Theriot around him, because that's one that'll get him going for about an hour or so. But yeah, that's awesome to to have all those stories of working directly with Cubs players professionally, and like having some chances to meet and greet them and everything. Well, hey, we talked a lot about the past. Let's get a little current here and talk about maybe one of the most triumphant series the Cubs have had in quite a long time, in which the defending World Series champion, the mighty Los Angeles Dodgers, rolled into Wrigley Field with the Cubs fresh off a series loss to the New York Yankees, and things were looking a little down. It was right there at the trade deadline. We weren't sure what exactly results that would produce and everything. And lo and behold, the Dodgers came out of here empty-handed, with the Cubs sweeping them in 3 games. Yeah.
And 2 out of 3, they really tried to ruin it for us. They really, it was close.
Yeah. It definitely was. And it actually kind of got off to a bit of an inauspicious start with like Matthew Boyd giving up a 3-run homer in the first inning. The Cubs offense really woke up and hit around Chicago area native Justin Wroblewski pretty well. And, they won that one pretty handedly later, but, it did get off to a kind of a little bit of an eerie start there.
Here we go again feeling, right?
Right. Exactly. As my guy Sean Caselli says, the LA Tax Dodgers going down in the playoffs. You know what? I mean, anything can happen. And like after 2 deep playoff runs for them, like maybe they might not have it this year. We'll see. Because they've been kind of cold ever since the deadline.
I mean, they weren't the best team last year either.
That's true.
like they almost lost the division to the Padres.
They did. There were a couple of times where the Padres and them were either tied or maybe the Padres were a half game ahead. Yeah, it was looking a little scary there for them. I think the other factor you do got to remember with them is like they do have enough talent where like they don't have to take every game very seriously, especially this year for them because they have such a huge lead on the NL West where like they're not any real danger of blowing that. I mean, I don't want to say that so soon because look at what happened to the Tigers last year, but still,
yeah. Well, I mean, they're too talented to let that happen. We know that. Like, and plus, like you're right, they do have that attitude of not taking every game seriously. I mean, if they're going to learn one thing from the right fielder, I mean, it could be to not care. So that's good.
We'll get into him a little bit later in the show, but actually a pretty nice series for Kyle Tucker at the plate, but thankfully, his team didn't come up with a win at all. Another big name for the Dodgers featured in this series was the debut of Tarek Skubal in Game 2.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Kyle Tucker. He actually got them on the board earlier with a home run. But the Cubs came roaring right back. Dansby Swanson hits a home run. They scraped together some runs later. And when all was said and done in Tarek Skubal's Dodgers debut, he winds up taking the loss. So amazing to be able to kind of spoil the debut of a heavily coveted Dodger.
I thought he was going to get shelled by us, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. I always feel like these big trades happen and then their first start is just like a disaster and everyone's like, oh, look at what they did. And then he goes 10-0, down the stretch. Right. But I honestly went in there thinking like, oh, this is going to be we're going to win this. And, but not like this, like Javi being our number 7 starter, I guess you can say at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Javi Assad on the mound too. And in probably the last start he'll make for a while, just completely outpitched Tarek Skubal. Yeah. That was awesome.
But don't forget, Kyle Tucker misplayed in right field. It's as if he had never been there before from a ball hit by Alex Bregman.
Oh, that's right. The ball right on the wall there. I completely forgot about that. Yes.
And it's you can't make this stuff up. Like the new guy hits it, all the way. Like, it's just like, of course.
Right. Yeah. There was a play in the Wednesday game where this was like the thing that frustrated me the most about Tucker last year when he was a Cub is it did kind of feel like he never really ran after balls that hard sometimes. He would kind of jog after some balls. Nick, appreciate you tuning in. I don't know if I'm familiar with you, Nick, but I appreciate you. I assume you're from the Fourth Space group, so welcome all that are in the comments section. Do us all a favor if you can, please, and smash that like button, please, and thank you. It really helps. We really appreciate it. I think the most kind of epic game of this series wound up being the final one, though, with kind of this was like the battle for the NL MVP, if you will, kind of with Shohei Ohtani leading off the game for the Dodgers with a home run off of who started this game? Was it Boyd or was it no? Imanaga did. Showed Imanaga did. Kind of another game one kind of start because Shota's had his problems giving up home runs lately.
Yeah.
But then again, it's
so has everyone on the team, to be honest.
This is true. And when it's to that guy, you can kind of understand it, But Pete Crow Armstrong wastes no time making that game even, the first at bat in the bottom of the first for the Cubs. They wind up tying it. They take the lead a little bit later on a couple other PCA hits. He had an RBI double. He had another home run. It was looking like a pretty comfortable game for the Cubs. Shota kind of settled down and cruised. And then we got to the top of the 8th, in which, after the Cubs had built up a 7-1 lead, Caleb Thielbar comes in. And at the end of this one, I was kind of hoping it would be Caleb Thielbar's last game as a Cub. He gives up a 3-run homer to Max Muncy and, kind of made it a little uncomfortable there. You know, later in the inning, newly acquired reliever Ryan Zefferjohn comes in. He winds up facing Shohei and gives up a home run. You know, before I lead off with Ryan Zefferjohn, like kind of painting him in a bad light here. I don't totally want to. I wasn't a big fan of that trade, I will say, because I really like Moises Ballesteros. But he did come in the night before and pitch the 8th inning.
Lights out, right?
He was lights out. Yes, it's weird. It was like the most dominant I had seen a relief pitcher that didn't get a strikeout in that inning, because his stuff was moving like crazy. I said it on Twitter, and I said it to a couple friends. It almost kind of reminded me of like when we had like Carlos Marmol in like 2007, 2008, before he fell off the cliff. He did.
Yeah. Scary stuff. It doesn't throw a strike, but everyone swings at it. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, what is he doing? But it's nasty. It
is nasty. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, the Cubs need a guy like that in the bullpen for sure. And they've been lacking in it all season. And it obviously doesn't help that they had all the injuries that they had earlier in this year. But, you know, nice to have an addition like that. Getting back to on Wednesday, he does give up a home run once again to Shohei Ohtani.
But it's Shohei.
Yeah, it's Shohei, you know, that'll happen. But that started to make it a little uncomfortable because now it was only a 1-run game. But then later, you know, 9th inning, Jacob Webb comes in, closes it out, and, you know, Cubs celebrate a sweep. And it was honestly like kind of a huge statement, like not just in the fact that you can hang with the Dodgers, but individually, the top 2 guys being talked about for NL MVP right now, PCA and Shohei Ohtani. PCA can hang right there at the plate with Shohei Ohtani, basically matching him at bat for at bat in that game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I actually, it gave me, because of the back and forthness, it reminded me of when Sammy and McGuire were going back and forth at the home runs. Because now, here's the thing, being on the East Coast, that you wouldn't know. Well, maybe you would have, but like you would have breaking news on TV for it. Okay. Like it would be like, it wasn't a Chicago thing. It was a national thing.
If you were outside of Chicago or outside of St. Louis, that would actually make a lot of sense. Yeah.
But, so it was like live updates. And so it reminded me of that in a way, just because of them facing each other. And baseball is probably praying that they play each other in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that's what they are hoping for. And, you know, as the Cubs kind of make this ascent where they had the dominant week that they did, like, you know, if they can catch the Brewers, like that's setting up very nice for it to wind up being Cubs versus Dodgers in the maybe not even the NLCS, maybe in the NLDS, because I think the Dodgers they don't even hold a bye right now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the placement's going to be very interesting with the records this year, because if the Cubs get the top wildcard seed and the Brewers, I'll say it like this. If the Cubs dethrone the Brewers in the division, that means the Brewers have to lose a lot of games. Yes. And which means they're not going to have the best record in baseball. And that means that probably they're going to be the 3 seed. We would be the 3 seed. They'd be the 4 seed, or vice versa. And And when that happens, there really is no benefit to winning the division. I feel like at that point, it's like, well, you do get the home field later, but you know what I mean? For that first round, there's no benefit because you're playing the wild card game.
Can I throw a curveball at you though about this, because of the fact that they just swept the Dodgers and they won the season series against them now if they wind up winning the division, they finish with the same record as the Dodgers. They'll get the bye over the Dodgers.
You're right. I'm wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I was wrong. I was just thinking like, you know, because I'm just like, let's just get to October. And
that's true. Yeah. You know, exactly. We can't get too greedy with this. And, you know, it's not like it happens often around here.
So. Right. So I'm like, let's just get to October. And like, if you're going to play in a wild card series, like, I don't care about chasing even though like I want to beat them. I just want to make sure we're the top seed in that wild card, so they have all 3 games at Wrigley because that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, exactly. To have him at home is the most important thing for sure. Why don't you get to just comment here from Nick Portlosa, who's the dedicated closer on this team. He asks also, is Webb the guy going forward? So kind of the same question all in one there. I mean, I think as of right now, Jacob Webb has done such an amazing job that like it would almost be unfair to him to remove him from that spot. And hopefully, and he's like kind of the one bullpen guy who's like not had to deal with any sort of injury or anything too. He's been a real blessing for this team. I wonder what Palencia will look like when he gets back. As not only is he a bit of an injury risk now after a couple of IL stints, but he does have some periods where he becomes a little ineffective here. There were times last year where that happened. I will say it is just so – it's such a, like, letdown from earlier this season in the WBC when Daniel Palencia was shoving for Team Venezuela. And you saw everyone on Cubs Twitter being like, just imagine this, but in the final out of the World Series with him doing that, because he became kind of like the star of Team Venezuela for them, closing out all those games. So,
I agree with you. But don't forget, October baseball, I think he was lights out last year. Like, there was never an issue.
This is true. I think he had one blip in one of the first 2 games of the Brewers series. He may have given up a home run then.
Okay.
He was definitely lights out against the Padres. But the thing about him in October last year is they weren't using him as closer because the starting pitchers weren't going all that deep. So they were using like the whole bullpen every single game they were in the playoffs last year.
It was like the most like anxiety-inducing experience during that playoff. But I kind of blame Craig as a manager, his stubbornness as a manager with Palencia, because there are some closers who cannot pitch in a tied game. Yeah. And Palencia's numbers when the game is tied is horrible. I personally saw him lose 2 games in tied games because of like the exact, almost the exact same thing. And I remember calling it out there were at least 4 times it happened. Okay. And last year. And I'd never seen those numbers for Palencia, but I'll have to check that out. That does, that is definitely a thing where like you have to have that kind of mentality as a closer that like you're coming in to protect a lead instead of like not blowing the game. Instead of that you kind of need a little room for error though. So I mean I can totally see that with Palencia, especially as a young guy too, and like kind of midway through last year after Ryan Presley flamed out that he was kind of plugged into that role. With Webb. Mariano Webb, that's funny.
Mariano Webb, Tyler.
Which is funny because Palencia pitches more like Mariano because Mariano got into jams. He just got out of them a lot. Like he would like, and Chapman too, like those type of guys. They always got in jams. They just found it was their inning to close out. But so I looked at Webb because I was harsh on him a week ago because I didn't realize he is not giving up a run for the last 30 games. Not his 30 games pick. Like in the past month.
Last 30 appearances?
He's thrown 11 innings and hasn't given a run. But I will put an asterisk with that. Okay. There were at least 2 games where he was not having his best stuff and the defense got him out of it, including that game against the Twins, which was that crazy – he almost blew that game.
The double play where what's his name? Josh Bell got hung up at third base there. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And then there was a Nico Dansby one that was just like insane that like he had loaded up the bases. So had he blown the game, and I believe 29 out of 30 teams would have probably blown, wouldn't have had the defense to pull that off. That ERA would have been inflated, and people have been like, "We need a closer." But he's been good. He's been good. He's been very good.
Yeah, no, he's been excellent, and I would kind of lean toward the side of just I think it's his job until he proves that it's not his job. Basically, I mean,
you think Craig will?
I mean, look, I actually, a mutual friend of ours, Alex Cohen, I tweeted this at him during a broadcast, and he wound up reading it on air a couple weeks ago, that the Cubs have not had the same relief pitcher lead the team in saves in back-to-back years since Hector Rondon from 2014 to 2016. You had a couple times where, like, it was one guy one year, then like back to a guy after, a year or two. I think it was like Kimbrel. But like under Craig, I mean, he kind of bailed on Adbert Alzolay early in 2024, his first year here. Went to Hector Neris. Then Hector Neris flamed out. Then he had to turn to Porter Hodge. Then last year starts with Ryan Presley, then winds up going to Palencia.
It wasn't Palencia. Remember, he got pulled. It was what's his name who went to the Phillies. We forgot about that.
Well, Brad Keller, yes, he
towards the end.
In October, he kind of was, yes.
Yeah.
But I think the plan was to go back to Palencia this year before he got hurt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good one to have.
I think that Craig will be forward thinking enough to just go with whoever he thinks the best guy is for that spot, and not just go back to the well with Palencia because that's who he had there previously. That he has the trust in Jacob. He's probably seen Jacob Webb pitch more innings this year for him than Daniel Palencia has pitched. Like, maybe this is an overstatement. I was going to say maybe more than Daniel Palencia has for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The one thing I've observed about Craig is once you get in a circle of trust, you're like golden, which we'll obviously get into with someone else on the team. But like once you're out of that circle of trust, you're never playing again. Like you're not getting it at bat. And Kevin Alcantara, I think, is a prime example of that.
I was just going to bring him up. Yep.
Yeah. Like he just looks like Craig does. Like you can read the body language. He just, I feel like he doesn't want him on that team. And I'm surprised no other team got him at the trade deadline, which might say all you need to know about his value perceived by other teams. But if your manager isn't going to play you, you probably should try to trade the guy for anything.
Right. I mean, yeah, we'll get into it later in the show because there could have been a chance for him to play more with how much a certain player has struggled, but hasn't really come to fruition there. Just want to feature this comment from my guy Sean Caselli saying Jacob Webb is our new Joe Borowski. Shout out to Sean for getting me this picture autographed of Joe Borowski about a year ago that I keep here for every podcast that I do. So
that's awesome.
Big Joe Borowski fan here, especially, with my last name and everything. That's
exactly
probably the best Polish Cub ever. Yeah. All right. So we move on to the makeup game for the Cubs and Blue Jays. This game was supposed to be played on Father's Day, actually.
Yeah.
Funny enough, if you got there early enough and you were in the bleachers, you got kind of a Father's Day themed gift of this like jersey that said like Dad won on the back too.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You can wear that any time of the year if you're a dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I actually kind of made a last minute decision to go to this game. I went to also the last game of the Dodgers series as well too. So yeah, this was a pretty fun week for me.
My brother's at the Dodgers game too, and he's a Dodgers fan. So stepbrother, I should say. So we didn't raise him the right way. But
you got to keep him on a short leash. Yeah.
Well, just enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
Don't put ketchup on a hot dog.
Exactly. When in Rome, you got to adapt to us. Come on. But anyways, so this game was actually kind of a snooze fest for most of it. They, David Peterson starts it, and another kind of weird start. It not a home run this time, but he gets in a bit of a jam in the first, and he throws over 3 times to try and get a runner at first and didn't get him out. That results in a balk, and there was also a runner at third at the time, which happened to force in that run, and that got the Blue Jays on the board. And it looked for quite a long time that was going to be the only run they would need. And we get all the way down to the very last strike of the game with Alex Bregman at the plate, a guy who kind of had a tough year to the point of the All-Star break, but has turned it on lately. And had his signature moment as a Chicago Cub, hitting a 2-run homer to tie it, like right over the basket in the left field corner. Wrigley was electric then. Like I
love that. I just kept rewinding it. I was just like, and the call on TV, Boog got it. Like he nailed it.
Oh,
I think like it was like you wait for that type of call. Like that's what you do this for. Like to get that call. Definitely.
Yeah. It was one that like I went back and watched too. Also I did happen to see the call that like Pat Hughes had on radio too. And
nice.
It was passionate. I'm worried about Pat a little bit because he's like losing his voice a little bit on these loud calls he has to go up on. Yeah. Hopefully he can like build it up enough for October. I know they work enough days off for him where, he stays fairly fresh.
I notice he isn't calling as many games. I listen to it as much as like when I'm in the car, obviously. So.
For sure. As my guy Tyler says, that block was pretty head scratching. Yeah. I didn't
know that rule, by the way. I had no idea that was a rule.
That's one of those new like Manfred rules that like,
beat up the game.
It came in with the pitch clock and 3-batter minimum and everything. Yeah, that like if you throw over a third time with the same batter at the plate, if you don't get the guy out, then it's a balk and the runners move up. So yeah.
So I'll tell you an interesting thing. Well, two things. First, did you think Bregman was gonna? Did you have a feeling Bregman was gonna somehow do this, or you're like, well, it's over?
I see, not specifically Bregman, but I did feel pretty confident going into the bottom of the 9th that inning because I want to say it was PCA leading off. Yeah, and it wasn't just the fact that it was PCA up there. The closer for the Blue Jays is Louis Varland. And do you happen to remember the one Carson Kelly flare that almost fell in? Yeah.
Oh, look, Nico or Dansby couldn't do any better than like that was the most perfect catch you could find in that situation.
Right.
It really was.
Exactly. So. It was, I thought that was falling in for sure. And I'm pretty sure like if I didn't say it out loud, I was thinking it. I basically had in my head the voice of like the Ron Santo, oh no, from 98 with Brant Brown. But here, I want to get a couple comments in here. Yeah. So Nick Portlow, he asked, did that new balk rule start this year? It didn't start this year. It started, I think, in like 2022 or 2023 when all these new rules that Manfred implemented with the pitch clock and the ghost runner on second was there before. But the pitch clock and the 3-batter minimum for relief pitchers, that's when that came into play. I feel like I haven't seen that rule get enforced at all or, have a situation where it could be enforced really until this year. I think there was a moment earlier this year when the Cubs were in LA against the Dodgers and Nico Horner was on first and a Dodgers pitcher threw over 3 times and wound up balking. Yeah. Yep.
Well, if it can happen, it will happen during a Cubs game. That's kind of
exactly. We got Southside Boys 2023. I wonder who he's a fan of. Can we agree this how epic this Crosstown Classic approaching is going to be fantastic. Playoff atmosphere tenfold. Completely agree there, buddy. I'm probably gonna try to get a ticket for the Wednesday day game of that series. It's it's not gonna end the day with both teams looking really good this year, but I should probably jump on that within the next few days when I get paid. And then my buddy Ryan Ramey, big series for the White Sox. Maybe Cubs are thinking about Red October. Okay. Yep.
Well, just don't let any bachelorette parties take place in the bleachers in center field. So. Or maybe we should.
Right? Oh, my God. Well, hey, at least, you can't be field level at Wrigley Field like that one lady at the Sox game was. Yeah.
I met him actually in Denver in the weirdest hour of my life. I ran into half the team. On the street.
That's awesome.
I was me and a friend for coffee who had COVID, and so he couldn't meet me. And I didn't know I was parking next to the Cubs hotel. And he's just like, it's not even near the ballpark. And they're like, you should just walk around the area if you have time. So I'm like, sure. And ran into Owen Casey and then PCA and Justin Turner together, got a photo with them, got with Owen, and then I ran into Matt Shaw getting coffee. He bought me coffee, and I
nice.
chatted for like 15 minutes. And then I ran into him at Cubs convention, like randomly, like outside of coffee again. And he's like, I know you. And I'm like, yeah. And then like I told him, like, yeah, I hung out with you for like 15 minutes there. And I'm like, can you sign a ball? And he's like, sure. And then he signs his ball and he writes on it, I bought you coffee. So I have my son ball from that Thursday, I bought you coffee. I didn't say that like he bought me coffee. He just wrote that. So it's pretty cool. So it was the best hour ever. Just so weird. Everyone was walking around just doing their thing.
Yeah. Maybe you might have seen it on Twitter like back in January, but I actually did meet PCA one night out too while out at Butch McGuire's in Chicago.
Like a bar, right?
Yep, exactly. It was the night before the Bears-Packers playoff game that obviously he was in attendance for because him and Caleb Williams are good buddies with each other. So kind of a just one of the best 24-hour periods of my life of kind of all coming together there between the Bears and that and also happening that night was the Bregman signing too, which maybe not as hyped about it now. We were pretty hyped about it then, but the hype is building back up. Yeah,
all the moves were super important because I always said we just have to get to the playoffs again for Jed to remember what it's like. It was far too long, and I just knew once that happened, they would start buying again. And but I know we got to talk about Kansas City as well, and that
for sure
a weird series.
I get a little bit of a weird series. I guess just one last thought. I mean, where does that game against the Blue Jays rank for you? Because I put together a top 5 list earlier this week of like the best Cubs games so far this year. That was number 1 for me. Just really, and maybe I'm biased because I was there, but being down to your last strike, getting the big home run, winning it in extra innings on the crazy fashion they did with the PCA stolen base and the overthrow, that was. I don't know that anything is going to top that at least in the regular season this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have to get a no-hitter, which is probably not going to happen. I think PCA's cycle for me was my favorite because that's like the only thing I fell asleep during the Carson Kelly one, so I'd never actually seen.
It was so late in Sacramento,
So like, I was like, really? Because that's like, I chased for that type of thing. Fun fact about the PCA cycle that no one realizes. You know the Shota combined no-hitter?
Against the Pirates in 24?
Yeah. So that game, PCA, Mr. Unknown, was a double or a single away from the cycle as well. And that would have been the first ever baseball game where a no-hitter and a cycle occurred at the same time.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
That
is, it's funny that could have potentially happened because, I mean, I don't know if this gets brought up regularly on broadcast, but I think one of those like preloaded into the video game broadcaster comments, like if you are playing MLB The Show and you hit a cycle with a player, they mention that like hitting for a cycle is more rare than throwing a no-hitter. So you would have had 2 very big rarities in that game.
So I was just like, and no one knew who PCA was then. Like they're like, this kid, great, he's having a good game. Like probably his best game ever. Who knew?
Exactly. All right, so we move on to Kansas City. Game 1 of this series, probably the most satisfying game. Well, maybe Sunday game, I'm not sure. But we get our first look at newly acquired former Blue Jay pitcher Kevin Gausman, who this has kind of been the theme of this week. They win games, but it starts a little inauspiciously with a ball coming right back to him and hitting him in the leg. And we're all worried, like, did we just did we just like trade away 2 prospects for another guy who's just going to be hurt now? But rebounds, only gives up 1 run in that inning, settles in, pitches 7 quality innings, a 2-run ball, looks real dominant, like as advertised.
Just what we needed.
Yep,
just what
absolutely.
We needed. And with our defense and I think, and with well, I can't say wind blowing in a Wrigley because that doesn't seem to matter with when we throw. But it's like I feel like he's going to have a much better second half. That was a great start. 7 innings. Craig doesn't like to throw people up for 7 innings.
Right.
He doesn't like people seeing the guy 3 times in a row. Like it's just that's Craig, and that's his stubbornness or just specificness.
I feel like he's been shortening the leash a little bit on his starters lately. If you go back to like when they were in Pittsburgh right before the trade deadline, like I think Matthew Boyd, he went longer in his start than I actually like kind of expected Craig to let him go.
Yeah.
And I think I even said on Twitter that I like kind of didn't want him to go as long as he did, but
Yeah.
it wound up working out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think Boyd had another one in St. Louis too. Shota's gone pretty deep in some of his starts. So, it's been they've gotten some pretty good performance out of their starting pitcher lately.
Yeah. And Ben Brown was very economic and would just kept getting pulled. Like he probably, there were a few games I'm like, he probably could have gone 8 or a complete game the way he was going. But that's how Craig is. And those are the type of things I'm like, you just not going to change.
Yeah. No, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not, you're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound with Craig, and he's, look, I know that over the course of the first couple of years under Craig that there's been frustration. Obviously, year 1 didn't go as planned. And, seeing up in Milwaukee, them just not miss a beat with Pat Murphy, it's like they don't even really miss him and they kind of excommunicated him from the city, basically.
We would have done the same if like anyone but Joe Madden went up there. We'd do the same thing.
That's true. That's true. Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I think the other angle of it is that he's from there too, and like was a Brewers player because he had so many like connections to the Brewers, not just with him being the manager.
It was a dirty thing we did. It was dirty, but I liked it.
You know what? It was, but one of the first episodes we ever recorded of this show, because we started the show in July of 2023, and in September of 2023, right before everything was kind of going to shit for that team, I was actually calling. There's a clip out there on Twitter that I tweeted out many times of me basically saying, like, I want them to do the same thing they did in 2015 when Joe Madden became available. If Craig Counsell is going to be a free agent and he can make a difference for this Cubs team, I want them to fire David Ross and hire Craig Counsell in his place. And I got my wish on that. For better or for worse, I got my wish. Brewers still don't miss a beat without him.
Pat Murphy's a really good manager. I mean, he just is. And I hate that he's so likable too. It really annoys me.
Yeah, I know. All the pocket pancake stuff. And,
I know.
Giving his players shit and everything. Yeah. All right. I mean, so back to the Kansas City series. They get the strong start out of Gausman game 1. PCA gets him on the board with kind of a nice hustle play to take for an RBI that wound up being I think an error, but they score like 4 runs that inning. It winds up being fairly okay. I think Thielbar had a bit of a blow up later in the game, which his days as a Cub have to be numbered at this point, please.
Yeah. I don't like seeing people lose jobs or anything like that, but he's just not effective. And the thing is, his bad outings really stick out because you could go and like look and be like, oh, actually his 10 starts before that or, appearances, he was good. I'm like, then why do I feel like every time he's up, he's creating a situation?
So, I think he's someone who often, I mean, obviously with the age, he's up there and everything. And we're probably lucky to get the year we got out of him last year when he was awesome. I do feel like sometimes he falls victims to opposing managers kind of just emptying the bench against him, that like they'll send up all the right-handed guys on the bench to face him when it's his turn. And, he's obviously lefty and, earlier in his career before the 3-batter minimum, he was probably just a lefty specialist used mostly.
Yeah.
So, looking like the end of the line, we appreciate what he did in 2025, but I'm kind of the opinion that the next relief pitcher that comes off the injured list and gets activated, he's probably getting DFA'd after that.
I mean, look, we've just upgraded. It's just we upgraded.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what. I mean, he was serviceable. I mean, he was there for the most part with all the other injuries. Right. I mean, we were lucky we had him in the beginning of the year, and then now it's just like, remember in 2025 that first half of that bullpen was good, and then all of a sudden it was like a turnover. It was like that's the blueprints of the Cubs, the bullpen turnover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of been Judd's game plan for the last few years here that, it's funny. I remember going into like 2025 and thinking, wow, we have a really good bullpen with like Porter Hodge and Nate Pearson and Ryan Presley and Tyson Miller. And none of those guys were impactful at all to the 2025 Cubs.
No, they weren't. I mean, Presley had a good stretch and then he was bad.
He did.
That other guy, I can never remember his name. He had like a 0 ERA, and then Craig made him an opener, and he completely against the Yankees, and then he completely fell apart. It was like
Chris Flexen. I remember that guy. Yeah, he would pitch a lot in extra innings and kind of just find a way to go 1-2-3 with the runner on second. He was impressive last year for a stretch.
And then Craig made him an opener in that Yankees game. This one Yankees game. Because I was there, where we lost 13-2.
Yeah, and Bellinger with 3 home runs, right? Yeah.
Would have been 4 if they didn't lose their instant replay call.
Yeah.
There was a fan interference.
Yes, with PCA trying to make that catch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And no, they gave him he got the catch. But he it was something. There's something. There's a fan interference thing. I just remember what it was. And Bellinger would have had 4, but which would have made only him and Lou Gehrig on the Yankees. So
wow, damn, that would have been great to see some history. If they're losing by that much already, you might as well hope for it to happen to say that you were there for it.
I was so mad. It was my one game of the year, probably. It's a bench game. He sits half the team.
Right.
I don't even get to see the defense. It was just when you spend Yankee Stadium's expensive. When you spend that much money, you want to see the stars play. That made me very upset, and Craig did way too many of those games last year. He hasn't done them once this year.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, I was thinking, so I mean, kind of relevant to this series.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, on maybe Sunday with the day off after that, after a long stretch, would they potentially maybe give Nico a day off?
Yeah.
They put they plug in James Triantos or Pedro Ramirez at second base for a game just to get him off his feet. Joe used to like to do it a lot too, where he would the day before an off day give a guy a day off to make it a double day off, But it all worked out. I admittedly did not really watch much of the next 2 games, which is kind of fitting too, considering who kind of turned it on in those games with Ian happening home runs in both those games. Yeah. I mean, I was following along at this festival I was at on my phone for Saturday night. Obviously, pretty important with Clay Holmes on the mound.
Yeah.
But he didn't really have it, and I think with him, we were kind of only expecting him to go maybe 2 times through the order.
Yeah.
Because it was first start in a couple of months off the injured list. And, especially with a new team too, you're not really going to take many chances with a guy who you don't know what you have in him yet.
Yeah.
But, Hap makes it a 1-run game with a home run. They later kind of blow it with a bullpen. Yeah. Kansas City busted open and, it's fine. They lose that one.
You're just not.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't going to win all of them. Then the last game. So I was actually at the White Sox game yesterday. I got to check out a decent amount of the game because there was a rain delay in the White Sox game, and that was happening as kind of the Cubs game was the Cubs were really mounting their offense and everything. I saw Conforto had some big hits and. Hap again had another home run. Nico Horner kind of busted out a little bit. Matthew Boyd gave you another solid start with 6 innings there. So, they took care of business as as they say. Yeah,
I agree. It was a good game, and it's one of those games where it's all right, I don't have to watch this. Like
Right.
we're in good hands right now, and
Exactly.
I think, and a 17 game stretch, we need the break just as much as they
Yes.
do. Like it's a lot of time.
Well, hey, you know what? I mean, they did about as good as you can do for that 17 game stretch, going 12-5. 12-5 without an off day is damn
with the Yankees and the Dodgers again.
Yeah, exactly. With the Yankees, well, I mean,
yeah,
it's not the same Blue Jays team as last year, but think about it: 4 straight games where you're facing the 2 teams that were in the World Series last year. You know, yeah. I guess the one like kind of disappointment is we didn't get the dream matchup for that makeup game of like
I didn't want it.
Kevin Gausman versus Jameson Taillon.
I didn't want it. I'm really glad they didn't do it.
And
I didn't want it for Jameson. I didn't want it for him because, and I think the players, like, it's not like, like despite how much he struggled, how he was loved by that team.
Yes. And you know what? Jameson Taillon, for as bad as he was this year, is like a Cub I will forever appreciate. I went to game 3 against the Padres that last year. He shoved in that game. He did really well against the Brewers in game 3 here. He was probably our best pitcher, not just in October, down the stretch in September last year.
When he came back from the injury, he was.
And if you go and look at his splits from 24 and 23, I know those 2 teams weren't playoff teams, but they were still alive for the playoffs in those years, more so in 23 than 24. And he was probably their best pitcher down that stretch as well, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hope he does well up there and so he can continue playing and not become a journeyman. He's a survivor. I really, I take I'm very sympathetic towards everything. So you always just want to see those guys perform well. And I just know that he was considered like the funniest guy in their clubhouse and very well liked. And that goes a long way.
He had an Instagram post today, like kind of thanking like the Cubs and Cubs fans and everything. And if you read some of the comments, there's so many Cubs players in there. Nico Horner was one of them. I think Dansby Swanson was one of them.
Yeah.
Like just talking about how much they loved him as a teammate and, how much they hope he's, continues doing well in his career and everything. And, we echo that sentiment as well, too, on this show. So, we finally have an off day here. We have some time to reflect, I guess. Any final general thoughts on this last stretch, that they played over the course of the past week? Or
this was a make it or break it stretch for the division, not for the wild card, for the division, and they stuck with it. And it really showed that in every game. Almost every game, it felt like they were in it, like they fought. They have this is not the 2025 Cubs right now. This is a very different, hungry team. This is a team that was like, Jed, get us people. This was and then there's a drive there that I haven't seen in a very long time, topping down that lineup. And just and the pitching and the numbers of how good our pitching was, that included JMO's bad game, and we're still in it. And it's just of course there's one reliever who's only pitched 1 inning in the last month, and maybe that's why we're better. Phil.
Oh, Phil. Jesus, I had completely forgot about him until you just brought him up right now. That's one where if he stays on the injury list for the rest of the year, like Eli Morgan did last year, I think I'd be okay with that.
I'm not going to go on the rant, but I've been changing the way I stand for how hurt I felt and not tell anyone thing. If you look at that up, is really that's. I don't want to say it's selfish, but it's it is. It's kind of like someone we can talk about on the Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to him in a little bit here, but just I guess my final thought on this series, I want to echo everything you said, that this was make or break for the division, that they went above and beyond in sweeping the Dodgers. They had, probably 5% chance of winning that Blue Jays game when they were down to their final strike, and they found a way to win it. It would have been nice to sweep Kansas City with how bad they are, but on the road, wins don't always come that easy. So, it's 6-1, more than happy with. The one thing that kind of sticks out as a little bit of a red flag, like 3 of those 4 games PCA was DHing for. And I'm wondering if something's up with him.
I was thinking about that too. I don't know. They've been talking about it a lot on like the radio and other shows. It's like, you got to give him a rest. He is just going to like fall apart. And maybe this was part of the plan, you know? Maybe. Also, like,
could be.
He's been hitting in MVP spots, but he has not been hitting for the average in the past few weeks. He's been hitting like 50 something. Yeah. And he's struck out, I think, like 20 times, but he's got 18 walks. So,
obviously that's the most improved part of his game this season. Now that you bring that up, let me just pull up Fangraphs here and just let's take a look at this together because
it's kind of maybe the last 15 games or 7 games, or it might be as much as 30. It's like,
well, I pulled it up for just second half in general, like since the All-Star break. So 270. I mean, can you see that I have Fangraphs up or
no? I don't. I don't see that, but
I got to share this. There.
I mean, I'm not worried about it. He's totally
let me add it to the stage. There we go.
Yeah.
So I mean, 270. I look at that's if he had hit 270 coming into this year, I think we all would have been happy with that. Maybe a little bit of a dip from where he was at the All-Star break, but still looking really strong. 394 on base, 596 slug. The leader in WAR in baseball still, like since the second half, which that was probably the big worry after the second half he had last year. So
I thought he was broken. I thought, well, we have the best defender who's going to hit 200, and bat ninth, and that's okay because he's the best defender. And I accepted that. I was like, he can't hit. I think, but he's hitting in the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Number 9 hitter, best defender in baseball. Hell, now we have maybe the best leadoff hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
And he's also the best defender in baseball. All right. So, I mean, moving along here, like, we saw pretty much everyone who the Cubs have traded for to this point, with the exception of Braxton Garrett. He hasn't gotten any action yet. He was up with the team briefly for I think the Blue Jays makeup game. I think did they allow them to do like a 27th man thing for like a doubleheader like they normally would? Or
I don't know.
I wonder about that.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant, but we saw
it's hard to take those hours sometimes to watch it. So
right. So we saw some action of Tyrone Taylor in center field. We saw Kevin Gossman look really good in his start. We saw a couple appearances of Ryan Zefferjohn looking real nasty on the mound. A little bit of a letdown with Clay Holmes, but it's might take him a little bit of time to get going here. What are your thoughts so far of what we've seen from the guys we traded for?
I'm really happy. It's changed the dynamic and the chemistry, I think, and it makes for a deeper bullpen again, a better rotation. Gosman was everything that every other ace that got traded did. He did just as good as anyone else, that got traded. So, I mean, that's a great early return. Taylor, haven't been impressed with yet, but I understand having to get him in every game just because you can't have this guy, if his specialty is against, left-hand hitters, you got to get him in there. I know we'll get him, which I'll agree with you on. He should be playing left field in those games, but there's he needs to have a more impactful game.
Well, for sure. He has played in center a couple times for the games that PCA DH for. He actually had a really nice catch in the last game against the Dodgers, like
Okay.
right up against the ivy. I mean, look, I'm not expecting a crazy amount from him hitting wise, and he's probably not going to hit all that much. Brought him in to face left-handed pitcher, so Ian Happ doesn't have to. You're probably mostly going to see him in roles where he's like he was, where he's trying to get guys off their feet, maybe later in games when it's more put away and, you just want to get them some rest or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love what I saw from Gossman.
Yeah.
Love what I saw from Zephyr John. I'm still just a little bothered by giving up on Moises Ballesteros at this part of his career. But
I'm not. I mean, I like him a lot. I'm
okay.
not. My theory is who knows what's happening next year. If the guy is not going to play on the October roster,
that's fair,
and someone wants him, you ask. I have to believe that there was someone else that they offered first in every trade, and then they asked for Ballesteros, instead, and Kevin. And the guy gets to play every day. It's the Owen Casey thing. Like sometimes you have to give up people to let them play every day, or else you just have to. And look, the front office said, we want to win the World Series this year.
Right.
When have you left a trade deadline, after other than 16, where you're like, Jed's like, no, I want to win the World Series. Like we're not playing around. Yeah. So I can't complain about
that's a great point.
I just can't complain about it.
No, I see where you're coming from that. And look, Zephyr John has looked really nasty. Maybe give it another couple weeks or so of him coming in and having that nasty sweeper. I'm not going to say I'm totally going to forget Mo Baller, but I'm not exactly going to be so upset with the trade as I was when it happened.
You want him to do well, and you know what? If he becomes the next Kyle Schwarber, you all know it's going to, the comments that will happen there.
Right.
But then we'll just say, yeah, but we got PCA the same way. It's just what happens in baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure. All right. So, I mean, one of the things that happened when the Dodgers were in town was the return of a guy who was with the Cubs last year, Kyle Tucker, who, for better or for worse, like overall had a really good year with the Cubs. And I would still contend that even with the poor second half he had, and even with the poor October that he had, the Cubs probably don't make the playoffs without him doing what he did. I will say during, later down the stretch when he, we talked about this with Phil Maton, that he didn't tell Craig or Jed or the training staff about the finger injury he had. And then he had the whole calf injury, and he had to go to some special doctor in Tampa and completely missed like the celebrations they had of them clinching the playoff spot and everything. And then obviously in October, wasn't all that impressive, had the awful strikeout against the Brewers in Game 5 in a big spot there. And he heard it from the crowd at Wrigley this week and was actually asked about that. He did have a good series at the plate, as you can see across the crawl right there, 5 for 11 with a home run.
Yeah, he had a very good play also in in that same game where he had a horrible play. It was like you almost saw last season's Kyle Tucker in 9 innings. It was like everything happened in one game.
That's a great way to put it. That is a really great way to put it. But he was asked by Fabian Ardaya, I believe it is. I want to say he's of The Athletic. Just when being asked about being booed at Wrigley, he said, "I tried my hardest last year. I tried playing through a hand fracture and a calf thing, just trying to get back to the playoffs for them and trying to do what I could to help out the team last year with them." Look, there were some Cub fans I saw that were like bothered by that quote. I think he handled it pretty professionally.
Yeah. I don't think he gets it. I don't think he gets it.
No, yeah, it was a weird situation with him because, it wasn't his choice to be here. He got traded here, and he was going into his walk year and everything. And in the situation he's at now and in the situation he was at in Houston, he didn't have to be the guy. But for the 1 year he was a Cub, he kind of had to be the guy. And
he didn't want to be the guy.
He didn't want to be the guy, clearly. Maybe for the first couple months he embraced it a little bit. I don't know how the injuries affected things, but, it didn't go, at least eye test wise, as well as I think most Cub fans would have hoped for with that trade. I will say, so I was there on Wednesday and the booze happened again. I was someone who tried to abstain from it all. I
don't like booze personally.
No, for specific scenarios, I'm okay with it. If it's a moment where, say, a guy isn't running out of ground ball, which Kyle Tucker did.
I was at that game. No, I went to the game the day after, so I was at the ballpark. I was there. I was it was that around that time. So it was the Air and Water Show weekend, if I recall.
Yeah, mid-August of last year, right around this time. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of thinking back to his time as a Cub, you don't want to be such a meatball about it because, like I said, didn't choose to be here. He got traded here. And, every Cubs fan up until about July or August, when things kind of started taking a turn for the worse with him, was really pounding the table hard for the Cubs to re-sign him and give him the type of deal that the Dodgers did. I think in the back of our minds, we all kind of knew that wouldn't happen with, how much he was asking for and how kind of unwilling the Cubs are to give a contract like that. I guess going to the Dodgers is, one of those things where it's, you look at it and it's all right, man, you're just taking the easy way out. But,
all power to him for that. I'll take 60
for sure. Yeah. If you're getting offered $60 million a year, I like this, Ryan. If a guy kills your parlay, you got to at least flip him the bird. There you go.
I got to tell you, the only thing that would have been better than booze, well, there are a lot of things better, would be if he came up and it was just silence. Every Cubs fan was we're not even going to acknowledge that you were here. You don't that would have been the ultimate.
Do you remember the Yankees fans when the Mets came when Juan Soto for the first time, and there were a bunch of Yankees fans in right field who turned their backs away from Juan Soto while he was hitting? Yeah, that would have actually been fitting. Yeah,
that would have been a little more thing. But the thing with him, whatever, we knew he wasn't going to return. We knew he didn't want to be there. I felt after the season, the two things that really stuck out to me was not that he wasn't there during the postseason. Well, I mean, when we clinched, it was that he didn't post anything on social media about it when every other player did. And to me, he was well, I'm not there, so why am I gonna do? I read it that way. And then he removed his Cubs allegiance before the World Series ended from social media.
Yeah, that was kind of a little weird. It's funny. I do wonder, what was it like among his teammates last year? Because, he clearly was the superstar of that team when he previously hadn't been the guy in Houston and everything. And, there weren't really any other former Astros other than Ryan Presley that were on the team that he was familiar with or anything. So I wonder how he kind of mingled with Happ and Swanson and the most popular guys on that team. The only moment I could really remember of them kind of bonding together was there was some boat trip on an off day. Yeah, there was a picture of them all on this boat and in the playpen and everything in Chicago. But you didn't really see much of him.
He got a boat. Yeah. His way is his way of it is hey, I'm spending money, I'm buying. Maybe in his he just might not fully. Who knows? There's who knows what's in there. With him, is the way he is. Let's you never know. But it just seems they're just weird things. I picked up on the Owen Casey when he hit the home run and everyone was in the dugout except Kyle Tucker. And then they asked him in the post game interview, in the doubleheader, did you get practice out there? So like, no, he didn't actually show up. And he said it in a way that wasn't but he said it. It was on Sports Center or something. And I was just like, this guy either I just want to say hopefully he just doesn't get it. But I have a question for you. You said that if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have made the playoffs. And I agree with you on that. But going into last year's season, did you think Boyd, Carson Kelly, Kate Horton, Michael Bush, PCA, and Seiya would have had the first half they had?
Wow.
Was that the expectation?
I mean, probably not with Boyd, Kelly. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys.
No one knew Bush was going to do that.
I felt pretty confident in Michael Bush, actually. Okay. I saw a lot of things I really like from him in 2024. I was someone who really complained a lot about Craig not hitting him against lefties a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking maybe he would get more chances. Now that didn't wind up being the case, but he had an amazing year last year, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So Kate Horton was not even expected, really. He was called up.
Yeah, he was called up. That I wonder what would have happened naturally with Cade Horton, because if you remember, he was called up at a time when I think Shota Imanaga went on the injured list after a start against Pittsburgh.
I thought it was Steele's replacement.
No, the guy that replaced Steele was Colin Ray.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So the reason I'm saying that is I always had the theory that it's the 2032 joke from that they always talked about, but
Carter Hawkins,
I didn't think that they expected to go to the playoffs last year with that team. I honestly thought they got Kyle thinking Kyle's going to be this all-star, and at the trade deadline, we're going to trade him and get anyone we want from any farm, and also probably trade someone like Nico Horner, who would have 1 year left, and that was going to be the instant rebuild. But instead, everyone else overperformed. And instead, the team had to be buyers.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even think of that angle with acquiring Tucker, but wow, that's a crazy way to think about it. Man, wow.
At the All-Star break, the Cubs had the same record as the 2016 Cubs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that. And there was maybe a stretch or two right after the All-Star break where they had the best record in baseball.
Yeah.
I think
yeah. Yeah. So and I saw the cracks happening. We all did, I think. And then they totally cracked all at once, but with not getting hits. But that was always my theory that, that they were always going for this year, that it was going to be for 2026 and 2025 was just bonus.
Right. Yeah. I guess to me, the big years or the big, at least first halves from Bush and Seiya and PCA, I don't know if those happen without Tucker being there. I feel like he was a big presence in the lineup that made the pitching to those guys different than it otherwise would have been if he wasn't there. I also do think that your theory on getting a guy as a star to potentially trade him because he's in his walk year, I don't know, if that was the thing they planned on doing, couldn't they have maybe hoped on Bellinger bouncing back and keeping him and doing the same thing with him?
I don't know. I mean, I wanted Bellinger there. I thought Bellinger, whatever. That's a whole other story.
Right, for sure. Yeah, we'll go down a whole rabbit hole with this discussion. I
know. All I can say is that 3-homer game from Bellinger was good for him because it was kind of. I felt like that was him showing Jed, be like, I wanted to be here. You traded me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I was whatever. But
because it was a player option for him that he picked up that offseason before he got traded. Yeah.
Yeah, he picked it up and they were surprised that he did it too.
Granted, he did have a down year in 24, but still.
But he was a fan favorite. So no, because I always thought we made that we traded away a big prospect for Tucker. And that was my thought. I'm like, well, if you trade away a big prospect, what's your expectation? You're going to get an even bigger prospect later. Right. That was my thought. I'm in the minority, but everyone just performed at such a high level that and maybe you're right. Tucker brought it out of them. They were like, we're going to do this. But I thought that was just my take. Because I also thought there are a lot of people who had 1 year left on their contract. Like Nico could have been a very easy trade haul last year, and those type of things. So, it was just that's just my take on it. But
for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to think about it that I haven't really thought about before. Yeah, I don't know. To me, the point I've always been driving home is that in 2023 and 2024, the Cubs' worst months of those years was May. I think they went 9-20 both those months.
Yeah.
You look back to last year in May, they went 18-9. It was one of their best months of the year.
I remember.
And through the end of May, their best player was Kyle Tucker. And I feel like that kind of made the big difference in everything. I know, there was the whole quote with Ian Happ earlier this year of the standings don't matter in May, but kind of seeing how the last 3 years played out, that was one where I was kind of pissed hearing him say that. And obviously I'm, predisposed to not liking things he does.
It wasn't the right time to say that.
Exactly. Yeah, right as we were about to get swept by the Brewers and fall out of first place too.
The main thing's right, because it was fool me once in April, fool me twice in April. I was last year, I'm am I buying the MLB TV package? Am I investing money into the team? And then I'm oh, this has turned into a magical season last year, and I was all in, and it was a magical season. It was one of the most fun years.
Absolutely, it was. Even with all that happened in the middle of it, with the bats going cold and Tucker having all his issues and everything, it was still a really damn fun season for sure.
It was fun.
Yeah. Well, hey, last year I believe the leader on the team in WAR for the Cubs was one Mr. Nico Horner, who damn near won the batting title, came in second to Trey Turner. And he's not had the best of years this year, but he's kind of turned it up a little bit lately. Had one of the lower moments of the year in the last game of the Yankees series, with him not tapping his helmet for a pitch clearly out of the zone that would have been a bases loaded walk that would have tied the game. Yeah, we've done this whole song and dance and everything on him, but you know what? We can forgive him because he had a really nice series against the Dodgers and, a nice stretch ever since then. You had a bit of a theory that you were telling me about via text on Nico that you think that, the tide is kind of turning for him. So the floor is yours for that.
Yeah. So that moment ties into the whole 17-game stretch. And by no means do I think he didn't tap the helmet because of that. It was a mistake, 100% mistake on his end, a blunder. And but in my eyes, Nico's one of those guys you could do no wrong at the end of the day because you play your heart out every out.
Can I chime in with one quick thing real quick?
Yeah.
What would have been an awesome moment is if, do you remember last year when he got ejected in that game in Detroit and they asked him about what he said to the umpire and he was just saying you're having a really
bad day.
Yeah. What if that umpire was working that day and after Nico had flown out in that at bat, he had said something to Nico? That would have been the perfect kind of revenge for it that,
Yeah, I was kind of surprised with him because he is so mild-mannered where right before he started hitting again, the hot mic caught him a few times, dropping some 4-letter words. And I was oh, Nico, that's not very Nico-like of you. You're having a bad day, a bad game. But but so hear me out on this. 17-game stretch. J-Mo has a really bad outing to start. I think it was the second game of the whole. And that could have led into an entire domino effect with the bullpen usage. So that loss could have, because the Dodgers were coming in, the Yankees were coming in, then the Dodgers could have ended up us losing 6 in a row because the bullpen got depleted. And I think that was why that outing was the true last straw for him, because it had significant damage going on. So you go to that Yankees game, and it was a 1-run game, and I think the 8th inning, Nico would have tapped the hat and would have been a tied game. And let's just say, of course, you never know what would happen next because, the butterfly effect, everything changes. But, let's just say they make a third out after, and you're going into extra innings.
Yeah.
So the way the Cubs are hitting and the way the Yankees are hitting, no one was scoring runs. That was going to be a 13-14 inning game.
Bullpen
gets depleted again. The Dodgers come in. Guess what? You are now going to be playing against the the number one trade, and they're really good, and a really good team, and you're still playing like chess with like AAA up and down with the bullpen, and with the deadline looming, and it's just like, if another starter has a bad outing, that bullpen gets depleted. Then you have the makeup game. Then you have Kansas City. I honestly think that could have been really damaging. And that loss allowed for all those other wins.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think?
Okay. I like where your head's at with this. That it's almost like I've had a similar take before about how like the 2018 season ended, in that like, if they, everyone says about that year that if they had won one more game, that they obviously would have won the division over the Brewers and would have had home field advantage to the NLCS and all that. If they had also lost one more game, they wouldn't have had to play that game 163 against the Brewers. They would have just went straight to the wild card game after the Rockies would have had to play that game 163. Maybe they get a little more, they're a little more refreshed for that game and are more equipped to win it. So yeah, I like where your head is at with that, because that's one where obviously losing a game when you're playing an interleague matchup doesn't hurt as much when you're playing on a national league team. Not that the Dodgers are in the Cubs division or anything, but you want to win the games against the teams you're likely going to see in October. So yeah, that's a really good call on your part.
And I'll take it even further. The JMO thing, the Nico thing, showing that the bullpen needs help, might have even led Jed to be more aggressive, be like, oh my God, we are going to follow up. Like, I'm sure he was, but like maybe there was a little more of the, I got to make moves. Right. I'm sure he would have done the same thing, but you never know. You never know.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's an interesting angle on it. I actually, last week when I recorded the show with John, I had a take on this series that I briefly touched on. That was, I almost kind of wish that Jameson Taillon wasn't cut after that Pirates game, that he would have made his next scheduled start for the Friday game against the Yankees, because if the Yankees wound up lighting him up in that game, that would have maybe prompted Jed to get more aggressive at the trade deadline. Yeah. And look, I'm happy with what Jed did at the deadline and everything. It's just that leading up until Friday, like, there was nothing happening with the Cubs really. So yeah, I was at the point where I was like kind of getting a little impatient with him. And it was like one of those things where, like, John and I talk about this somewhat often, that there are times that I think Craig makes a move where he'll play a player who's underperforming to just kind of send a message to Jed to be like, I need better than this. And that could have been one of those scenarios with JMO. Now, obviously, happy with the results since then and everything. But yeah, that is one of those moments where, yeah, it was kind of, as I put here, a blessing in disguise. So yeah, good call on that, Adam. I like your thinking on that.
I was really annoyed that day though with not tapping the helmet. I was like, I'm in New York. These games are a little more. I don't need to get 1,000 text messages from people being like, "What is that guy doing?" But
I was gonna say, you probably got some Yankee fan friends who like would have given you some shit for that, right? Or
yeah, they actually, most of my Yankee friends like the Cubs because they hate the Dodgers. Okay. So it's like they're kind of adopted, and I mean, PCA is growing on people. Like, he's pretty
okay. Hey, you know what? Those Yankee fans, they could probably clown a lot of their Mets fan friends for PCA with them giving up on him. So there you go.
Hey, and don't forget, we have David Peterson Armstrong as well from the Mets. So,
this is true. This is true.
Anyone who's good gets the Armstrong next to their name now.
And any great former Met coming to the Cubs has Armstrong attached. I like it. I like it. We're going to keep this going on the show. I like that. Good. For sure. All right. So we're going to get to our big segment next. Okay. But before that, I'm going to play a quick ad for our shirts on the site. ChideSportsBums.BigCartel.com is your home for all Chicago Sports Bums merch. We have Bears, Blackhawks, White Sox, and now Chicago Cubs shirts. You heard that right. The Bums in the Bleachers have both a marquee-inspired shirt and a classic Budweiser-style logo tee available. Perfect for a day in the bleachers or a night out at the bars. So head over to shysportsbums.bigcartel.com and grab some tees today. All righty, yeah. Sorry, I'm not wearing the shirt featured there. I wore a couple of them over the week, so they're in the wash right now. I actually got this shirt for free outside of Wrigley after the
cool.
After the Blue Jays game. A guy who was selling out there had an extra 3X that he couldn't get rid of, and I'm a big boy and I fit into it, so that was kind of a blessing for me as well too. But the last show that I did, I actually went on this had to be 2 shows ago. I went on a bit of a rant about a guy who I rant about quite a bit.
I saw.
Yes. And I voiced my displeasure with the fact that the end of that Pirates series in Pittsburgh, that he was the last out of the game, and he was facing a left-handed pitcher, and he has not been good against lefties this year. Over the course of his career, he's been much better against righties than he has lefties. He had been okay over his career against lefties, but obviously this year has been a low point for him. And I was basically banging the drum for the Cubs to go out and acquire a bat that could make Ian Happ into a platoon player. Now, I will say, this is a trade I wish they had been making for years past before then. Especially during these stretches where Ian Happ goes multiple months hitting below the Mendoza line, having an OPS in the 600s and everything. I've grown really, really tired of that. But you are someone who is on Twitter, who is, I won't say that you're in the Happ hive that was always in my mentions every time that I say something negative about Ian Happ, but you're clearly a supporter of his. I see the jersey back there. You are rational about it. Yes. And I appreciate that. So, I mean, tell me your case for, like, my thing with Ian Happ is not so much, I think we're pretty well aligned with how they should handle him for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I think maybe where we disagree on is what is his place in Cubs history. So the floor is yours on any direction you want to go, whether it's Cubs history or where they should go with him from here. But go ahead and tell me what I should know about Ian Happ.
All right. So let's have some – let's just have – I won't say ground rule, but let's state if you're on social media, there's some very unhinged Cubs fans regarding him. Where it's not you, but there are certain people who are, I'm like, what, did he run over your dog? Or what did he do to you personally? And it just it's really weird to me. And you'll take interviews out of context to point him out to be a bad clubhouse person. And that type of thing bothers me because I don't think anyone who really follows the team will say he's not a good clubhouse guy. He has done a lot for all the players.
I hear his teammates always speak very highly of him. So that's one where I cannot dispute it at all.
He during COVID, he literally bought a house and invited players to come in so they didn't have to do this alone. He's a stand-up guy. Met him clearly, all that, as a person, I just that's where I think it's weird. As a player, I agree with you. I wanted a trade to happen. I knew it had to happen. I also thought it would happen. I was I think he just, this year specifically, up until a few days ago, he has that, and it's funny because this exact same thing happened last year too. He gets to this place where you'll notice he's hitting well. You're okay, he's going to have a good year. We're good. Then it's not great, but hey, he goes through this. The defense is there. I don't care if anyone says left field is the easiest place to be. I don't care. People aren't running on Ian Happ. He's saving runs. He's a Gold Glover, and he has been a Gold Glover 4 years in a row. So, I don't anyone saying that is just you're just find a real thing to argue about. And so you get to his at bats, and then he gets to the phase where now he's striking out a lot, and he's just walking away, and he has that nonchalant walk away. But the on-base percentage is there. So at least he's walking. And I was okay. When he was a leadoff hitter, I was if you keep getting your walks, You're seeing a lot of pitches. It's helping the team. I thought that was a key to their first half success, actually, was him seeing all those pitches at first, even though he wasn't hitting. I thought it was helping the team strike at the starters and getting the starters out of the game for their pitch count.
We talked about like Kyle Tucker with the Cubs last year. I remember one big thing that he said that he really appreciated about Ian Happ when it would be Happ hitting first and Tucker hitting second is just how much Happ would grind out at bats and make pitchers pull a lot so that while Tucker was in the on-deck circle, he would get a really good look at what those pitchers have. So, that's a really good point on your part there.
Yeah. So then you get to this point with Ian where you're like, oh my God, he like if it was anyone else, there's a risk of getting DFA'd at this point, but he won't because he is playing that poorly at the plate and he's not getting walks and he's being put in too many situations where those outs are substantial. And you can't argue that. And every time you think it's never going to turn around, Thanos snap. He starts hitting. And he does it always at a time when the rest of the team starts getting really cold. And you're like, well, I know everything I said about him, but now we have to say, thank God you turned things around because you might have been responsible for us getting that top seed in the wild card.
Right.
He had a really big home run against the Brewers. Like he had his hit in the postseason.
I was just talking about this with a group of friends who are kind of more on my side of the Cubs fan debate with Ian Happ that not only did he have the home run in that game, right after he hit it was like a point where the wind started blowing in like crazy the rest of that night. And he hit 3 other very deep fly balls that night that on plenty of other nights could have been home runs. Yeah. And so, I got to give him his props for that because, that was an elimination game for the Cubs that, granted it helped that the Brewers didn't score any runs that night, but it was one of the biggest hits of the entire October run for him last season, for sure. The thing with me is just that, like, it's a bit of a historical thing for me. It's one of these things where, like, it almost makes no sense to me that Cub fans up until 2015 and 2016 were, the classic saying you'd always hear is just win one before I die, right? And then they finally do win the one in 2016. It doesn't make any sense to me that the year right after that, a guy comes up and he becomes one of the most beloved players on the team. It didn't happen instantly, obviously, because you still had Rizzo and Bryant, Baez, and Schwarber at that time and everything. But, like, for a guy who has been here that long and has never really been much of a superstar and has a tendency to kind of fail in some big moments and has failed at multiple positions in the field before he got to left field, that he has kind of become as heavily supported by his sector of the fan base as he has. And I get it. A lot of it is off the field as well, too. We opened the show talking about, like, how much it means to fans when you get to know a guy on a personal level. And he is someone who is really good with the fans. I mean, you see not just your personal experience, but you see the thing that happens, like, at the end of every year for, like, the last home game. He'll
that was amazing. With Jeff, right?
He'll like tape like $200 around a baseball and say, "Here, have beers on me," in the bleachers. I think that is objectively a very cool thing to do. I guess just he is someone that, and he was a relatively young player when it happened, but when the great sell-off in 2021 happened, where Bryant and Rizzo and Baez all got traded, the motivation for doing so, although this is what they say, I don't know if this is exactly accurate, but, it was largely driven by the fact that those guys did not perform well in the games down the stretch in September, down the stretch in October, from like 2017 through 2020. because their hitting performances after they won the World Series in the playoffs during that stretch were awful as a team.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me is Happ was every bit as much a part of that as the rest of those guys were. I know he had a big home run against the Marlins in 2020.
Right.
But he was very much not good in 2018 down that stretch when the Brewers caught them. If you would go and look at some of the advanced stats on Fangraphs, there's a stat called like Z swing percentage and Z contact percentage, and that's for like pitches in the zone. How often do you swing at them? How often do you make contact with them? And he had the lowest contact percentage for pitches in the strike zone of any major league hitter that season.
Can I ask, was that whiffs or is that just like standing there and letting them throw a strike?
No, taken pitches don't get factored into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. He had the highest swing and miss rate on pitches in the zone during that time. And
I mean, he did get sent down. Remember, he got sent down in what, 21 was it, or 19?
Yes, he did. I just want to keep it on 2018 for a second because that is a season that scarred me so much with how it ended. Like, because that was like just the beginning of the end for that Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, Schwarber core that could have potentially gone on longer if that team had made maybe a deeper playoff run, and all the revenue that they collected from that deeper playoff run could have resulted in them signing like a Bryce Harper over the offseason or Manny Machado over the offseason. And, you know, look, he was young then, but it's hard for me to reconcile with it when it's like Rizzo and Bryant, Baez, and Schwarber, they get a ton of blame for them failing in big spots in those games too. And it seems like Ian Happ kind of skated by during that time.
Yeah. You know what? That's really fair. My memory of those years are not as good as yours because after 2017, I was so drained by everything. And after they beat, was it the Nationals that they beat in the playoffs? Dusty Baker's team, right?
Yeah. In the NLDS, they beat the Nationals. That is right.
I was just like, they were on such duct tape in that season, like at the end where it was just like, you knew they weren't going to beat the Dodgers. Like you just knew that then. So then coming into the following year, it just felt like maybe I just knew it wasn't going to happen. Like personally, like I was not as positive going into it. So it was just for me. But I understand for someone who also remember this. I'm not in Chicago. So it wasn't as easy even back then for me to be as involved and watching every game. I was also a producer at WWE at the time, so I was working night shows often, and it was in a different world where I couldn't like watch 162. So I didn't see what you saw.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Happ is that like because of the type of player he is at the plate, you know, you're not going to enjoy every single plate appearances. He's not going to be a guy that is going to hit, you know, for a good average. We've come to reconcile now. You kind of got to like wait it out for the big hit from him. And, you know, it normally is a pretty big hit when he gets there.
Yeah.
A couple stats I wanted to present to you here. So, actually, before I get to that, so another thing tying into the 2021 deadline too is until pretty much last year when PCA kind of turned it on, I was someone who like was still kind of against them doing that. And I do feel like he was awful until the deadline. And then he kind of turned it on in like late August and September. And
the Rockies he like had that turnaround.
Yeah. He wound up having like an okay year where he got above water for like, you know, league average OPS plus and WRC plus and all that. But it's like if he could have been that good in the first half of the season, that they win a couple more games where maybe they considered not selling those guys. Now, again, I also have to reconcile with the fact that if they don't sell those guys, we don't have PCA right now. So maybe that's a bit of a blessing in disguise there. I still think only getting one or two effective players for what you gave up and what those players meant to the city of Chicago and for Cub fans.
It was a low point for the franchise.
Yeah, definitely.
But also, like the guys that they traded. I mean, Baez is still here, but like,
yeah,
who knows what they saw? They knew the guys were cooked that they traded.
Yes, this I undoubtedly cannot dispute that. Yeah, Rizzo and Bryant were on their last legs as baseball players at that point.
And let me ask you this: had Rizzo stayed a Cub his entire career and never gone anywhere else, do you think he would have ended his career happy? And do you think he'd be living this great life right now as this ambassador? He kind of had to go because he would have been this guy who, very loud and emotional, and he would have might have turned into a player that isn't as popular because I think he would have been miserable, I think, towards the end. And maybe. I hate to think that way about him because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I just don't think, like, let's say they kept him but trade everyone else because they're like, we have to keep someone. I think, like, he would have just, like, it just wouldn't have been, like, a good place for him.
Right. I can see where you're going with that. Yeah, that it would have been, you might remember this better than I would, but, like, it could have been like those last 2 years of Ryan Sandberg after he came back after the retirement, where he was just kind of a shell of his former self. Yeah. And, every fan knew that he was just kind of hanging on to like kind of cement his Hall of Fame career. Cause like, I think at that point of that first retirement, he hadn't passed up Joe Morgan for like most second base home runs at that point. And that was like a big motivation for him coming back. So I can see where you're coming from with that. I guess for me, like, okay, it really stems a lot to it wouldn't have been so bothersome for me if they had just kept Bryant and Rizzo through the end of the 2021 season and let them walk. I could totally understand it then. It really bothered me on the last day that they were both in Cubs uniforms that they never saw the field. And David Ross never let them have that final goodbye to the fans in their Cub uniforms.
I agree.
Look, Hap doesn't have anything to do with that game specifically.
No. Well, actually, he does. He does. Because that moment is why he got his no trade clause.
Really?
I am a firm believer, and this is where I think he has his fan base. Jed was like, I'm sorry for what happened. We know that he's our young guy right now, called up. He could be future. When we extend him, we're going to give him a no trade clause because we're not going to do that to you guys again and make you think like, oh, we're just going to develop someone and trade them. And I think, and also there's a lot of history of, he was also on the trading block that year, and he talked about like the mental health thing. And I think,
and the next year too.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot going on there. And, I think he talked about how like, his like wife now, but it's like his girl. I think like they even broke up or something because of the idea of him moving and her having her Chicago roots and the type of like impact that could have. I remember said something about like there's a lot more to like playing for the team. It's making your roots in a city and wanting to do that. And the fact that he just thought like that could be taken away. Like anyone in a job getting laid off or something,
Right.
And so I think like that's why he got that extension. And for me as a fan, I was like, okay, I'm invested in him now because Jed is, and I like what he did. And then he extended Nico. I don't think gave him the no trade clause. There's like the little things with that. With the, just to cover what you said.
For sure. I wasn't a big fan of the extension at the time just because I didn't think he was the right guy to extend. But I can see how like a lot of fans were really attached to him, and they had to do that after not committing to Rizzo and Bryant and everyone. So couple stats I want to show you here. So this was kind of when he was like at his like highest approval rating for me was to start last year when he was in the leadoff role for the Cubs.
Mhm.
And, OPS isn't great and everything at 745, but leading off with a 364 on base percentage,
Yeah.
that is really damn good. That is phenomenal for your leadoff hitter. And he was taking a lot of walks, obviously. That has been like a real big strength of him over the course of his career. He wound up going on the injured list. I think they had played the Mets and Queens.
Yeah.
He had like a very minimum stay. It may have only been the 10
He said
days.
he came back too soon. He even said that on a call. I remember he said that like on his show. He's like, I came back too soon.
For sure. Yeah, and as we see here, the stats kind of indicate that because 652 OPS, 183 average, did pop some home runs there, but that was a bit of a rough stretch for Ian Happ, and that was one where it probably came to like the biggest point for me where I was crapping on him every day on Twitter. And I feel like this stretch also coincided with when the Brewers got really hot last year and took over the control of the division.
Yeah.
I've said it before that I think that there were a couple other factors at play, but this was a big reason why the Cubs fell out of first place, was having him hit at the top of the order and producing these kind of numbers that he did. However, you take a look at what he did after he got moved down in the order last year when Craig, I think it was right before the All-Star break, but at the series you were at, New York, I think a couple of those games he hit lower in the lineup. And
he took him out. I was so mad. I'm like, seriously? I'm not going to see him play?
Right. Oh, yeah, he did sit for one of those games. That's right.
He also sat him at the Mets game that I went to this year, too. I'm just like,
jeez.
Whatever.
Dang.
Mets committed 6 errors. It was a fun game.
There you go. There you go. Jeez.
But no, I see this. And I had a counter to this because I knew you were going to bring this up. Let's talk PCA. PCA hitting in the 9th spot this year was pretty lousy. He was lousy the first month. He was exactly how he was everywhere else.
Yeah.
And he got moved to the leadoff. And it's not just his bats, it's his entire approach and how he approached being a leadoff changed. And what is he doing? He's getting his walks. He's doing these things.
He is.
It's the position and what you're asked to do in that lineup, which is different all the time. Nico Horner spoke on that this year when he was struggling. We all thought it was him getting hit in the head. He said, no, they're asking me to pull the ball or something, and it wasn't working. So all these guys, I think there's something where they're being given a job and maybe it's not the best job to do. And I'll take that into say as a producer. I could edit video packages. I could write scripts. I could find music. I can't shoot with a camera. So why are you sending me out with a camera when there's 10 other people who could use the camera? So the idea is you don't put someone in a spot that's going to show your weakness. And I'm sure they would have loved to move him down the lineup, but the other issue is Dansby Swanson wasn't hitting either, and you can't have back-to-back or even have someone in the middle when it's going to be a risk of 2 immediate outs. I'm not blaming Dansby for this at all because it's just it's a shame because he's another guy you just want to see play really well. I'm sure you're, as a Cubs fan, you don't want to see Ian fail. You want him you want him to shut you up and be like, look, I'm the MVP of the World Series. And you'll be like, maybe not.
Okay, so I generally agree with what you're saying. I guess when it got to the low point it did this year with the 10-game losing streak where, I don't know, where it maybe a very brief time where we thought the season was completely lost and everything.
Done. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, at that point, I was thinking to myself, okay, let him keep failing because then changes will happen.
Okay.
But obviously, if I'm in the mindset of I want the Cubs to win and I feel comfortable that this Cubs team can win, then I always want to see every player in a Cubs uniform come through.
Because there are some fans who would rather see him fail than the Cubs win the World Series, I feel like, which is, again, I think it's weird when you feel that way about any player in baseball.
Right.
Undeservingly. So let me ask you this about that 10-game losing streak. During that period, Was Ian Happ the biggest problem of the team during that 10-game losing streak? Do you think he was the biggest problem?
No, not even close.
What were the problems?
I mean, just all the pitching injuries mounting up as much as they were at that point. And I mean, I'm trying to think who, like, that was when, like, that was what's that?
No one was hitting. No one.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody was hitting at that point. That was like the low point of the season for Suzuki, Bregman, Nico Horner. Happ is included in that too, but like obviously he's not the only one among that. So yeah, I totally get that. Okay,
so my next question to you is: you're talking about when he was playing poorly last year, you know, in the first half and during that, and the Cubs. Did the Cubs arguably have the best record at that time, or one of the best records at that time?
Yes, however, the Brewers were like right hot on their tail. And
but was that more of the Cubs, or was that more because the Brewers were just playing better baseball? They had that 14-game streak. They had what we were doing this year. They had that last year.
They did. It's just what was the largest lead the Cubs had last year? It was like 6.5 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Like okay. I mean, obviously, when they're that far up, you feel pretty comfortable, but that didn't last very long. And to me, like, if you're playing in the third biggest market in the country, you know, you have your main competitor is one of the smallest markets in the country and everything. And obviously, you know, drafting and developing helps for them and everything too. But like, you should be blowing them out of the water. You should be winning the division every year by a wide margin. Yeah. And when I see like players that have been here for a long time and that they were on teams that were kind of, you know, underperforming, and then later, like, you know, teams were bad for like intentional reasons, I don't know that I totally believe in them that they can win with them. So yeah, I get where you're coming from on this. Yeah. That like, yeah, they were really good themselves, and yeah, there was a lot of things that happened with the Brewers that were out of their control. Yeah. But the Cubs, I feel like, needed to just be above all that themselves.
You're right. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, when they were playing their best baseball since when they won the World Series, which is arguably the best team in Cubs history, Ian, you would say, was the team's biggest problem at that point, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we go right now, and we're playing really, really good baseball. Everyone's hitting. The pitching is good. Would you say right now, Ian is the team's biggest problem at this moment? Even count the last two games. Don't even count the last two games.
I was going to say, like, not the biggest, but he was up there for me up until those last two games.
So my argument is, if Ian Happ is the team's biggest problem, the team doesn't have a big problem. They have their weak spot. There are a lot of other teams that wish this was their big issue, that a Gold Glover, who is still proving to prevent runs, is doing the job that we know he's going to do. He's underperforming for sure, but we know that. We hope he's going to turn things around. This is what you get. The only problem with it is he's being asked to be in a position that he shouldn't be in right now in his career. And I agree with this. So that's why, like, you know, I always say, I say this phrase. It's from, were you ever a fan of Married with Children?
I know of it. I never really watched it.
Okay. It's one of my favorite shows. And there's this quote where she said, well, if you give a gun to a monkey and the monkey shoots somebody, you don't blame the monkey.
Okay. I like your thing in there. Yeah. Okay.
There are certain things where you can't blame the player when it's their abilities. Am I disappointed with how he's been? Yes. But like the hate and the stuff, it's not like, you know, if you have a guy playing right field who refuses to move down the lineup when he's injured. This is a guy who will do whatever's asked from him. He's not complaining. He's still going to the media. He's not pouting, refusing to do his podcast. He's being the mature player that you want from a veteran. He is doing everything he can. And that's why I defend him. I'm going to agree with everything you say.
Okay.
But I think where I'm coming from is, I think we can have common ground. You're like, yeah, I get it.
Yes. Can I go to a point where we'll disagree on, because you brought it up a couple times now? You know, the Gold Gloves in left field do not really mean much to me. I'm sorry, but it's not an important defensive position for me, and especially for a guy like him who failed at multiple other spots, that they would probably be so much better off if. Look, I've had this argument on Twitter a bunch. It's hard to like find the player that fits this, but if they could find like the guy who has the ability to produce a 135 to 140 or higher WRC plus and gives you serviceable defense in left field. I don't know who that player is right now, and that's the toughest argument I got to make. But I don't know. To me, if you're not getting, all-star level hitting in left field to go along with the Gold Glove defense, I don't really think the Gold Glove defense is all that worth it to me. And furthermore, I would say that the fact that they have stuck with him strictly in left field has kind of shown me a sign that, like, in their eyes, I don't know if they think he's as good as those left field Gold Gloves would indicate that he is. And I always go back to the time late in 2023 and early in 2024 when Seiya Suzuki had his problems dropping fly balls in right field. During that time, wouldn't you think that if you had a really good fielder in left field, to move him over to right field, which is a more valuable defensive position than left field is, and move that guy from right field to left field where it's not as big of a deal if a ball falls in? That's just my 2 cents.
Who was the manager in those 2 seasons?
Well, for one of them, it was David Ross. Early on in 24, it was Council. Yeah.
Right. 2 very stubborn managers who will not change how they do things, even if there's a solution that you and I see. I actually have thought about that too, and I actually agree with you about that, because I've wondered that too, because I'm like, he's hitting free agency. Like, what does that open up? Is it strict, because I'll have a question for you about that in a little bit, but because I've thought about that too a bit. I used to actually go on your side of things about the left field defense, but you still are the best left fielder out of 15 guys, 20 guys. And but there's a thing about this right now. PCA has become an elite center fielder. Who has been out there with him every game, helping him as he gets it, guiding him along, and giving him room? There's that.
He's done a really good job, probably, of being in communication with him on a lot of balls. I remember there were some like a little awkward moments last year of like balls that PCA would come all the way over to like straightaway left and catch, and Hap would kind of be annoyed with him for the fact that like he was stealing a put out away from him. You could see it on his face a little bit.
I remember that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too, and probably a good guy to learn from too, because Hap has played some center as well. I just, the thing I keep coming back to is like, if you look every year when over the course of the last 4 years when Hap has been a Gold Glove finalist and then he eventually won it, the other 2 guys as finalists, you don't often see the same names there, because those names that are listed there are guys that when their natural position opens up, they got stuck out there because their natural position was blocked. When their natural position opens up, they get moved to that spot. They don't stick in left field. Ian Happ has been like the one constant finalist for the Gold Glove in left field. So for me, it's just kind of like.
Is it the participation trophy glove?
What's that?
Like the participation
that's a great way to put it. Yes, the participation trophy glove.
Well, I mean, I won't disagree with that, because I used to feel that way. But what I've noticed this year, I don't know if you've noticed this more, they're not running on anybody from our outfield to tag up to do risky things. And it's not just PCA, it's Ian too, which means that there's a level of what trepidation, fear. We're not running on him. So no matter what you say about that position, he has become this person that the team is not going to run on in close games and risk that out. And that is really important when you have a team having cold bats. And I'm not saying they have cold bats right now, but we're a very streaky Cubs team. And having that type of insurance right then and there will win more games than his strikeouts for that thing.
And okay, that's a really damn good point. And I'll even go one step further with you, just for the fact that like the Cubs pitching staff as a whole doesn't really strike out a lot of hitters. They do get a lot of outs via contact. And, you know, naturally most of the hitters you're going to face are going to be right-handed. They're naturally going to be pulling the ball to left field. So Happ is going to get a lot of balls hit to them for sure. It does feel like the vast majority of balls that he catches are fairly routine. You do get like, you know, the higher like real play from him every now and then.
I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could do that when he does that. Like, I get very like, oh, wow. I don't expect that. I don't expect PCA like moves out of him ever. And he does it
for sure. Yeah. You know what? Okay. So the one catch that like kind of stands out with that is, you remember like the deep fly ball that Jordan Walker hit? What?
Oh, sorry. Go on. I'm thinking different one.
It was a deep fly ball that Jordan Walker hit when they were in St. Louis against the Cardinals. I think it was like Trent Thornton on the mound, and it was hit like, you know, the outfield in St. Louis is a little weird because it like bends in a couple different spots out there, and there was this like bend right in left center, and he caught it like right in that corner that he like tracked down, and he was kind of past like the left center point of left field. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. And, you know, probably one where it's a flaw in how I look at him. I will admit there are some flaws in how I view Ian Happ as well, too, because it took me a little bit to understand the whole concept of like, you know, just because he's hitting for a low average and a low OPS doesn't mean he's bad, because you got to look at the OPS plus and the WRC plus because of where the league average is these days, because pitchers are dominating. I get that. And I would also say, too, one thing I realized is that I feel like I would appreciate his defense more if the Cubs played, instead of at Wrigley, a stadium where the left field wall was short enough where he could rob home runs more often.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if he could all the time. It would be interesting.
He did it a couple times. He had one in like Pittsburgh and I think one in St. Louis maybe like a couple of years ago. I'm not sure. I will say this.
He's not that tall though. He's not that tall, which is why I say that.
He's not. I would just say, like, general thought, anytime I see a Cubs outfielder rob a home run, it should be like way more impressive than any other player on any other team doing it, because you don't have the ability to do that at Wrigley Field because of how high the wall is.
We don't get to see that as much as anyone else. We see that less.
Right, exactly. And I guess maybe the like most intersectional question on Ian Happ I have to answer if I ever get asked this is like, could he have made that catch in 2003?
Do you know? Bartman? Did you see that one game this year? I forget who it was, where it wasn't Ian. It was an outfielder for another team made that catch in that exact spot. I know they shifted the infield, and I was just like, oh, it could have been caught. I've never seen it caught, and it was like, I don't know I'd have to find it. It was like this play. I accidentally also sat in that seat last year.
Oh wow, nice.
I didn't know. It was the day after the Air and Water Show. We flew in with my family, and my nephew was so scared of the engines that he refused to go. So I traded in all their tickets and just got, what's the best seat I can get? And I'm like, why is this seat just here? And then I sat there, and I just look, and this person was like, yep, that's the seat.
That's the Bartman
seat.
That's the seat.
Yep. But yeah, no, who knows? I don't think who knows? I think he'd have to be taller.
Probably, yeah.
But
can I just a quick aside? I've had this take for a little bit that if in that game, I almost wish they had like a less, not a worse, but maybe a less capable left fielder in left field for that inning, because maybe then, like if say Doug Glanville or Tom Goodwin is in left field instead of Moises Alou, that he just doesn't even make an attempt on trying to catch that ball and it's just a regular foul ball, and because they all blew up because of how Alou blew up at Bartman. So, yeah.
By the way, speaking of how I said Married with Children's my favorite show, in 1986, there's a line where the daughter says to her mom, "Can we go to Wrigley this year? We hate sitting on the in an apartment with binoculars." She says, "Well, honey, we can't. We're not allowed back at Wrigley Field ever since your father interfered in a play that cost the Cubs going to the World Series." In 1986.
Wow. And
further, that line was cut out of reruns because they have to cut things out anyways for commercial. Yeah. So in 2004, when it moved on to repeats on like a cable channel, they had the episodes uncut. That line came back. It had never been heard since the original broadcast. And then I'm just like, did that just happen?
I gotta look up this video clip if it's on YouTube or something like that.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
Where do you think Ian's going to go next year, by the way? What do you think's going to happen?
That's a good question. I just want to add one thing on that. I mean, you always hear about like The Simpsons being the show that like predicts everything, but kind of crazy to hear it from like another show like that was popular at the time.
That show also had a whole thing about getting rid of the penny in that same episode, so maybe it's just a weird.
Wow. Okay. Very much a predecessor to The Simpsons calling things out. Yeah. Okay. So as far as a destination for him next year goes, I mean, I think the likely spots everyone thinks of with him, because he's from Pittsburgh and he went to college in Cincinnati, would be the Pirates or the Reds. I think you can cut the Pirates out of that. They have a good left fielder in Brian Reynolds, and the arrow is pointing up for the Pirates now. I mentioned this to a friend of mine that, was it this year or last year when they decided to finally cut Andrew McCutchen at the end of spring training?
Was it last year? I think it was last year, right?
Okay, yeah. Because I think they had kind of let that drag on a little long, like kind of like what you talked about with Rizzo if he hadn't gotten traded. That like maybe we would have gotten tired of him a little bit, and like we would have wanted to see them move forward from him and get some new blood in there and something. So they moved on from McCutchen. I feel like if the Pirates, with the way things are looking for them right now, were to go after an Ian Happ and just do it for the sake of the fact that he's from Pittsburgh, that it almost would feel like a regression back to that mindset of like, we're trying to, appeal to the fans and like sell tickets and not really win games more than anything. Now, again, it is the Pirates and they are owned by Bob Nutting, so let's not totally rule that out. But
I mean, they have a short window to win, which probably gets messed up next year because their pitching is just like, and that's going to go. I mean, Skeens is going to be the next Skubal,
Yeah, could be, yeah. God, future Dodger.
Cincinnati has prospects too, by the way. I was like researching it, and I don't think he's a fit there, but he hits for power in both of those parks.
Okay. I mean, I obviously between those two, I would say Cincinnati is more likely.
Yeah.
Just, their last place team. I don't know who really is like up and coming in the outfield for them. But
I think Cleveland.
Okay, yeah, because
and that's also his favorite team growing up, which is ironic.
I was going to say that because his dad is originally from there. Yeah. I remember hearing that.
Yeah,
and you know what? Let me throw another like kind of positive thing for Ian Happ, and this is not even like this is not even to like come to.
Do you want to come up with the negative to match you? Because I could find one. So
yeah, there you go, perfect. So I had heard the story that like while he was in the minors with the Cubs, his dad actually passed away. I think it was in 2015.
Yeah.
And he took a lot of like the person he is today from his dad and everything. My dad, he passed away about 5 years ago when I was 26.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you. I really appreciate that. And I feel like I have like become a lot more like my dad ever since he has gone. And so I can level with him on that from like a personal perspective, that, it's a hardship in life that we both had to deal with and everything. When he he was part of this big like radiothon thing that
I heard that
670 The Score was part of for raising money for cancer research and whatnot, and obviously told the story about his dad.
and the trot doing that whole thing.
Yes, yeah, the head turn that he does after home runs. Yep. And I worked up the courage to. It's funny that day of the radiothon happened to be on my birthday. It was May 21st, and I feel like the stars were just kind of aligning there. And I actually like made a donation to that fund while he was on, and I said like in memory of Keith Happ.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
I'm glad. I always wondered what that trot was because it almost looks like he's dancing in a way, and he's not like the most. He's the last guy I think you ever see dancing. So, just
hey, have you ever heard his walk-up music though? Because it's very like club kind of music, So I don't know. Maybe he's got some moves in him. You never know.
I don't think we'll ever see them, but
right.
But so I heard that, and knowing that I was going to meet him 2 weeks later, I was going to ask him about what the home run trot was, and then I heard his whole thing, and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't ask him that there because he got so choked up and. I was teary-eyed hearing because it was really you could see, I was really, it was an emotional, I also lost a parent at a younger age, at the same age as you, I lost my mom. So, and it was really hard. So like, I made sure to give him the note after meeting him to like that woman, Abby, which she shared to him and his wife, how like getting my dad interested again, I think he would understand why that meant so much because my dad just hadn't been into it ever since. So, I get it. So I'm glad I didn't ask him that because that would have totally just been like, Adam, you had one chance to meet one of your favorite players and now he never wants to see you again because you just asked him the one thing you shouldn't have asked him. So, that would have been what would have happened had I not heard that interview on
the radio. Yeah.
Which is just like would have been like a Curb Your Enthusiasm thing to me or something. But I agree with everything you've said. I can't argue it. I just feel like,
Well, I never fully answered your question yet on where I think he winds up. So okay, I mean, I sorry to cut you off into that.
No, go on. Please.
And I know we're running long. I hope I'm not like keeping you from doing anything you want to do and everything. Okay.
No.
All right. Maybe wrap it up in like 15 minutes or so. But I think the options are Cincinnati. I could see him potentially going to Atlanta. Because I think after all the things they've gone through with Jerks and Profar with the PED stuff, that they're going to be looking for like a pretty dependable left. And they're a team that like perfect fit for him because like he wouldn't have to be relied on for his offense. And if he goes into a slump that, they have the hitters and Olsen and Acuna and Riley and everything to kind of mask that and everything.
So kind of like the Cubs right now.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And then lastly, I think if it's on a 1-year deal and it's like $10 million and he gets it with the understanding that he's not going to play every day and they're going to play some of the young guys, I think he sticks in Chicago.
I agree.
I would think he stays a Cub and, he would probably be someone that would be in the role of like what David Ross was in 2015. Just kind of, guiding some of the younger players along, playing in spots where they need him to. I maybe playing often than that. I think he could still get the job done against righties and everything. But I don't see them committing very long-term to him with guys like Josiah Hartshorn and Kane Kepley and Ethan Conrad kind of waiting in the wings. And, we'll see what the lockout brings and everything. But, like Hartshorn has kind of like been on a fast track through the minors. And, I was thinking if there is a season next year, he could have an outside shot of like getting called up late in the year. So,
is there something, let me ask you, is there something like I read with Ethan Conrad where it's like he isn't allowed to be called up for 2 years or something, or there's some rule, or because maybe I misread because he looked like he was going to be the next fast track guy who's like the Matt Shaw, or like, what they're doing with other teams. And I was like, I bet this guy's going to be on the team in a year. But maybe I don't know if there's something. I could be wrong. I thought I had read that a few days ago. But I agree with you. I think it'll be one of those teams, maybe somewhere in Texas, since I know he lives out there in the winter. So, and I just think of like, at the end of the day, it's going to be the player's choice at that age where you want to be. And I think he's going to want to stay in Chicago. I just think like he's going to continue doing these 1-year deals with them, maybe with mutual option. 10 million, 8 million. I think he understands it. The only reason why he wouldn't do it is if he has an opportunity to play every day and that's what he wants to do. And, and that was the whole thing with Seiya last year, where like people are like, maybe he'll get traded because he did not want to DH. He wanted to play the outfield every day. And he felt like, because he had the no trade clause. I'm like, yeah, he would probably accept it if he could play for a team every day. Obviously, thank goodness he's here. He's a big part of that team. But at the end of the day, it's, do you want to play every day? And that's going to be his choice. And the lockout's a big thing too. I think there's going to be a lot of baseball babies coming because these players,
like scab players, kind of, or
no, I mean like all of these players.
Oh, I see, with all the time off and everything. I think
it's gonna be like you're gonna start seeing all these players are gonna start like. I know to be home for it.
I know he's married now. I don't know if he has any kids, but
I don't think so. But but like I'm just saying, like I bet not just him. I'm just saying, like I bet like he and all. I bet that's going to play a role with a lot of these players with free agency coming, being like, well, we could also do this, which is the one thing probably more important than baseball and a World Series. So,
I just maybe the one thing that could push back with that is he is at the point in his career where like. I think he might only need like 1 or 2 more years of service time to get to the 10 years necessary to earn a pension. And is it 1? Okay.
Didn't he get called up in 2017 and he was on the bench?
Well, yeah, but like, he's those first few years up until 2020, like he was up and down and like didn't spend the full year with the major league team. So I don't know exactly what the major league service time adds up to, but I think the fact that he's made it this far, he would probably want to try to keep going until he can get to the 10-year mark, especially if he's trying to start a family too.
Well, I don't know. We talked for 15 minutes. I'm just thinking like as humans and like how people are, it's like this is a good window for players, to do that. And I'm sure I'm just saying, wait until you see like all these like baseball babies being born all of a sudden. I think he'll be back next year. I think it'll be a lesser role, and
okay.
I don't know. I just think he will. I don't want seeing him playing against left-handers. They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to figure this out. The good thing is they have so many options.
That's true.
Now.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see. There was a point earlier this year where, like, when he got off to the good start he did, when he had that 30 game on base streak. There was a point this year where, like, they're going to have 2 guys in walk years that are corner outfielders between him and Suzuki. And I was actually, for a brief time, leaning more towards Happ if you could only take one. Now, obviously, Seiya has turned it on a bunch lately. Yeah. We'll see if Happ, rebounds it after, a nice couple games here. I guess the thing that I would say, though, is that Happ might not be the one you prefer, but he might be the one that's easier to sign because he wants to be here. With Seiya, I wonder if he goes unsigned past the point where the CBA expires, does he maybe consider just going back to Japan and playing there next year? Because I don't know how long he's going to want to wait it out for a new contract like that. And obviously he's going to be in Japan anyways over the offseason. But still, if there's a delay in the season starting, that may prevent him from coming back altogether,
Also, aren't they just probably going to give both of them a qualifying offer and they're just going to take it? which will really upset people.
I could see it happening with Seiya.
Yeah.
I don't know about Hap. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
maybe that's just the Hap hater in me. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I could, I don't know. I think this lockout is going to create very interesting situations for a lot of players on their walk year. And you're right about Seiya. Seiya, who knows if he even wants to stay in America, after this.
Right.
You don't know, what goes on with these players.
There are a couple factors with that because, one, I mean, did you see for the brief time he played for Team Japan in the WBC, how much fans loved him there? That like all the Seiya chants, like he's a hero there still. Yeah. And like, I think some fans try to build that up with the Cubs, but it's not the same here clearly. And I because if you watch some of those games in Japan for like I forget the name of the acronym for the league there, but the Nippon League, I think it is. Mm-hmm. They're equivalent to like English Premier League games for soccer, that like the fans are always chanting and into it and everything. Like they make themselves part of the game, and you don't get that kind of atmosphere even here at Wrigley. I mean, it is a great atmosphere at Wrigley for sure, but like I don't think anything matches what you get there for like the most passionate fans of baseball in Japan. And what was the other thing? Oh, do you remember too? Like, I think he didn't get to spring train, or was it spring training or WBC? He reported something fairly late because of like visa issues.
Yeah.
And, not to get kind of political here, but with the current environment of things, with how, people from outside of the U.S. are, handling things when they go back and forth from the country and out of the country, that like maybe that's something he might not want to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys aren't in the epicenter of seeing all this in Chicago anyway. So what do you guys know about everything going on? But but yeah, you have to really weigh in on what that does to someone and their family, and the beyond baseball thing. It'll be really interesting. But to end on the Hap thing, I'll just say this: it's if he's the biggest problem of the team doesn't have big problems. And like, it's when there's a bunch of things and it's like, and this now, it's when it really is glaring. But again, the other problems are bigger than his problem at that time. That's why I feel that way.
Okay. I will just say that to counter what you said, maybe not over the course of 162 if he's the biggest problem, it's a big deal. But however, last year in the postseason, he kind of was their biggest problem outside of the one home run he hit against the Brewers. He was probably the worst hitter on the team. And obviously he was, there were maybe 3 good hitters for the Cubs in October. It was like Bush, Seiya, and Nico.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see numbers like that, and I can't tolerate seeing this guy at the top of the order in October if I'm going to take a team seriously on making a deep playoff run.
Right. And look, it's the on-base percentage is what's really glaring on that, because he wasn't doing the one thing that he always does when he's, struggling, and that's still taking walks. So that was a fail. And that was. But again, that's on Craig. It's just like when Craig literally had Justin Turner lead off in the postseason, and it's like,
oh my God. Oh, I hated that last year when Bush was like their hottest hitter too against the Padres. Oh my God.
It just goes. It's like, but this is why when people are like criticize a manager, I'm just like, you're not going to change who he is or what he does. Yeah. So I'm just not going to fight it.
So it's funny that you bring that up, because like most of the people that I argue with about Hap on Twitter are also like huge Craig Counsell like stands and like are very much on the side of like being okay with Hap hitting at the top of the order when he was there.
No.
And I can appreciate the fact that like you're at least someone who is saying that like he hasn't been handled in the right way by Craig Counsell.
Yeah.
And look, I am overall a fan of Craig Counsell, but there are things he does that I disagree with, and I obviously will voice my opinions on them when they happen over the course of a season. So, you know, I can appreciate that about you, that, you know, you're one of the Hap fans that will actually talk about that aspect of it.
Well, guess what? I'm a Cubs fan first, and I want to win a World Series. And
right.
One player is not bigger than my fandom for one player is not, you know, that. And Hap isn't the only player. I have a Nico thing, and I have my Cade Horton obvious shirt that I actually created in there too. So I got people. Yes. Did you ever hear about the nickname I created for Cade Horton? Did you ever hear about this?
I did not. No. What was it?
What was Kerry Wood's nickname?
Kid K, right? Or
Kid Cade.
Kid Cade. I like it. Kade. I like that.
No, K''D. Kid Cade.
Oh, that's even better. That's even better. I like that.
So obvious shirts liked it and they made it. And,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to reach out to Joe about that and see if he can make another one, because that's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, because he reminds me of Kerry. Like, yes, he's Kid Cade. And
there you go.
And I paid for like a little meet and greet at Cubs convention just to show him the shirt, and he hadn't seen it, and he signed it, and it was pretty cool. So
gotcha.
But my point is, I like a lot of the players. It's not just
dude. I'm the same way, and I don't like being as pissed off as I get as these players. I want to see them do well. Okay, it's just, you know, when I see the numbers with Hap over when he's taken a third of the season where he's one of the worst hitters on the team, and then in the playoffs it kind of falls apart. It's one of those things where just like you want to see them do well, but like you don't know that the rest of the team can overcome him hitting as poorly as he is. Like in 2016, when they had Jason Hayward, the rest of that lineup found a way to overcome it all, because you had Bryant in an MVP year and Rizzo top 5 MVP, and, you know, a rising star in Addison Russell and Wilson Contreras, and a great leadoff man in Dexter Fowler. And, you know, all around that diamond, you had great hitters that were able to like kind of, you know, mask the flaws of Jason Hayward.
And a rotation that, like,
and a great rotation, and maybe the most unhittable closer in MLB at that time too, in Chapman. So yeah, I mean, all right. So I feel like that's a good place to call it on for the grade 8 debate. I appreciate that we found some middle ground there, and that, you know, I have tried to do this with other people who are big Hap fans on Twitter, and I think because I go as hard as I do sometime, that they get turned off by it, and they don't think I can talk about him in good faith. And there are sometimes I think those people can't talk in good faith about Ian Happ when they're so biased against him. But I think we found a pretty good middle ground here of that, like, you know, defense and left field, you know, not all that valuable, but it also does help that, like, he has helped bring PCA along, and the teammates love him and everything. And, you know, there's obviously the consistency of everything, and there's him going off like he does. I guess just the big worry for me is, if he's getting hot now, will this last long enough to carry into October? Because he got hot second half of last year. It didn't exactly carry into October.
You're right. And there are some players who just aren't capable of doing that in October. Greatest players ever. Some of the best pitchers. Yeah. It's just how it is. And Craig has to manage that and say, hey, you're not hitting here. You're lower in the lineup. We appreciate you.
Right.
End of story. Right. And that's why, like, that's where my criticism goes. And by the way, I think Craig does really good things with the bullpen. We can do another show. We could do the pros and cons of Craig. But, but him with those specific lineups and unwillingness to change And maybe it's a mental thing, or maybe he had a manager that just like moved around the lineup so much that it's just like Craig said, if I ever manage, I'll never do that, whatever it may be.
Right.
There's something there, but like it's frustrating.
Right, for sure.
Yeah,
man, we're past 2:30 now, and still got 121 people watching this. Thank you for everyone who still is.
I'm sorry.
No.
No, they've had to hear me talk. That's what I'm saying.
Oh man. All right. We're getting to the back half of the show here. We'll be wrapping up fairly close. So sorry if I'm keeping up anyone past their bedtime or anything like that. Adam, I appreciate you sticking it out with me.
Yeah, this is fun.
We'll make this one fairly quick. Throw it back as we like to do a little on this date segment here. So it's August 10th, and on August 10th, 20 years ago to the day, the Cubs, in kind of a lost season that was very much lost in April last year, a big injury to Derek Lee, and the pitching couldn't really figure it out outside of Carlos Zambrano. They lost a game up in Milwaukee to the Brewers 8-6. And it would be the last time that we would see this iconic Cubs pitcher. I think you know who it is that I'm referring to here. But I'll spin this another way, because there's another trivia question I can ask you for this. I mean, you know who I'm talking about. It's Mark Praz.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a game. I didn't realize that was it. I was just looking at those numbers and feeling really sad for him. But yeah,
that was such a tough stretch in 06 for him that, like, I think he had one like amazing game against the Mets where he took a no-hitter in like the 5th or 6th inning or something like that. But outside of that, he was a total shell of himself before that.
Yeah.
All right. On the other side of things in that game, there was a pitcher for the Brewers who had been kind of a pretty big Cubs killer, later became a Cub in 2011. Do you happen to know who that would be?
I have no idea.
You
just have to tell me. I wouldn't even know.
Couple hints here. So, I mean, this guy was like a guy who I think beat him a couple times in 03. They played the Brewers a couple times down the stretch in 03 when they were trying to fight it out for the division. He would later become a Cub in 2011. He also, in 2007, would be a guy they would face in October against the Diamondbacks. I think he started game 2 of that series. And I think a pre-rookie of the year, Giovanni Soto, hit a home run off of him.
They didn't get Webb, right? No, that was game 1.
I think Brandon Webb was game 1. Yeah. Brandon Webb was game 1. This guy was game 2. And I think game 3 was like Levon Hernandez.
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
I gotcha. Do you remember Doug Davis?
No.
Big lefty. When he was on the Brewers in the early 2000s, he was like one of the bigger like Cub killing pitchers on that team. Yeah. And then I want to say, kind of joined the Cubs in 2011. That was another lost year for them.
Yeah.
I think he like started a game. The only thing I remember is like I think he started a game against the Yankees when the Yankees were at Wrigley for the first time in like probably since 03. And I don't really remember anything about that game. I just remember that I know going into that series, like it was like one of the first Ricketts years, and the Cubs, they did a bunch of like kind of, I think, BS advertising of trying to like put a graphic together of both like Starlin Castro and Derek Jeter to be like, the shortstop of the present and the shortstop of the future, something like that. Yeah. So
I do.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big deal because interleague before this whole thing,
true.
The Cubs and the White Sox would always play 2 series no matter what, and the Yankees and the Mets would play 2 series no matter what. So when there'd be interleague, it would be our year to play the AL East.
Yeah.
Routinely, they would skip the Yankees or the Red Sox, and you would miss out. So you could go. Well, they missed at Yankee Stadium. They missed out 2 times, and they only played at Old Yankee Stadium once. So I never.
05, right? 05, I think it was when they came there.
So the only Cub to ever hit a home run out of that Yankee Stadium.
Who was it?
Jeremy Burnitz.
Jeremy Burnett. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. To the short porch and right. I think I remember that. Yeah.
It was like, it was,
Yeah.
but like, it was really, as a displaced Cubs fan, it was really hard when you would actually miss out on those series. And also, we didn't get WGN. You know, even though it's a national thing, my cable plan in New York didn't get WGN.
Yeah, but
we tried so hard to find it.
But by then, it probably didn't have the same like superstation coverage, especially if you lived in an area where like other MLB teams were probably.
Right. Well, I mean, we got PBS, but it was just not part of the cable package.
Yeah.
So when you're saying like those 03 games against the Brewers, I had no access to watching Cubs games until 05 when MLB TV on the computers was available, and then I got the package.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's no way. So like these things, it was like the one Fox game, and usually I wouldn't get to see it because the Yankees or the Mets also had that Fox game.
Right.
So yeah,
it's funny you brought something up about how like the Cubs sometimes would get skipped over for series against interleague teams. I think that was a function of like, because remember until 2012, the NL Central was a 6-team division.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and so I think what would always happen was if you had 4 NL Central teams playing interleague matchups, you just have the other 2 NL Central teams play each other at that point. So it would kind of like screw you on if you wanted to see like the Cubs against the Red Sox, Cubs against the Yankees, Cubs against, the A's or the Angels, whoever. Yeah, I mean that would have been nice to have seen that. During that
really
time.
Wasn't fair to fans out there. Like, and it doesn't help growing the reach of the league when games teams.
And especially at a time too where like interleague was a little more unique than it is now too, because you get an interleague game every day. I mean, the Cubs just played an interleague series in Kansas City. I mean, everyone plays everyone these days, so it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster. I don't mind that interleague play happens as often as it does. It was nice to like have it be a bit more of a novelty back when I was growing up, though. But yeah, I mean,
obviously it's better for me.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, since the subject of this was supposed to be Mark Pryor, like anything you'd want to add on like Mark Pryor at all from any impressions you had, or
no?
I mean, obviously, he holds a special place in Cubs history for most fans of similar age to us. So
I saw something at a Cubs convention that I will not repeat, and it made me no longer be a fan of his.
Oh, okay. All right, that'll be.
I'll tell you after this, but it's not my place to ever say it on this on a stream. It's not right.
Okay,
but I did not like it, and I lost a lot of respect.
Good to know. Okay, I thought all Cub fans beloved Mark Pryor, and I maybe found the one. Hey, it's the yin and the yang. Me disliking Ian Happ, you disliking Mark Pryor. Okay.
Yeah. That's the same. It's the same thing. I used to love him. I used to love him. I mean, I was more of a Kerry Wood guy than a Mark Pryor guy. Kerry was my favorite. Well, it went from Sandberg, from just that coin, and then to Sosa. Then Kerry Wood, and just never getting to see him play because he was always injured in New York. And then the one game he did play in New York was his worst ever start ever. So I act like I didn't actually see it. And then I got to see him play at my first ever night game at Wrigley when he was closing. It was a Rich Harding game, which was kind of magical, just how he would pitch. And then Kerry closed, and the entire ballpark was chanting Kerry's name.
Oh, man.
And I had goosebumps. It was like, that was when you pick about your favorite games, like, I couldn't tell you anything that happened in the game. I know they won, but that there was like, you could remember yourself there. And
it's like vivid for you. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, the Pryor thing, unfortunately, I mean, he was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And he'll always be special to me. The first playoff game I ever attended, 9 years old, game 3 against the Braves, him versus Maddox, and he out-dueled him. So, that's kind of an iconic, iconic game in Cubs history that at the time at least, but kind of gets a little forgotten about today with all they've accomplished since then. But yeah, I mean, Mark Pryor, definitely popular Cub.
Yeah. I just hope
sure.
that Kate Horn and Justin Steele aren't the next two Wooden Pryor,
Right,
because
right.
I get a little
Yeah.
flashback.
Okay, so this is gonna sound really bad, but he's the Dodgers pitching coach now, and every time the Cubs and Dodgers play each other at Wrigley, this is gonna sound bad, but I almost kind of like wish there could be a moment of like a Dodgers pitcher getting hurt, because I always tweeted out at the time like, oh, look at that, Mark Pryor and a trainer are out on the mound at Wrigley, just like at old times.
Yeah. I'm just glad he has a job in the league and he's able to do something that I hope he likes. So
definitely. All right, let's close out the show with our last two segments here. We are going to fly the W and take the L, and I'm going to play this video right now.
Hello? You play to win the game.
Addison is next. Doors open on the left at Addison.
I say one thing. Go. Let's go. That's a W. That's E1. That's E1. That's a W.
Is a L7 winning.
It's a little video package I put together when we first decided to do that segment. I am going to lead off here with a W, and this is another kind of nostalgic one for me. It hits home from my childhood. Maybe you might have been young enough to have played these video games, but you remember the MVP baseball video games at all?
My favorite game. I love MVP baseball.
Well, one of the announcers from that game, Mike Krukow, who had been calling games for the Giants, officially announced that he's going to be retiring at the end of this year. Actually, if you know your Cubs history, way back in the day, he actually pitched for the Cubs. And and think anytime the Giants would come into town, for a lot of years, he would take me out to the ball game and everything. Pretty well beloved figure in obviously more so in Giants history, but pretty well beloved among Cub fans as well too. So for a great career, raising bottle of water. I've finished all my beers here, but here's to you, Mike Krukow. You got a W.
That game taught me more about baseball than anything else. It was like they made it such a way, the UI for it made it you can actually understand what it meant to like put out a bullpen and the whole season stuff. And then it would get really sad when you'd see like Derek Lee getting old and having to retire from your franchise mode. I played that game so much. Who also loved that game? I think I pointed that out to you. Your favorite player, yeah.
Yes. The man who almost changed his walk-up song to "Hey Driver" by Lucky Boys Confusion, Ian Happ. Yeah. That would go a long way towards like getting me on board with Ian Happ if he ever were to do that. Because, yeah, for sure. I got a couple more W's to add as well too. They're mostly just thank yous, but I won't say in your way if you want to get to some. Do you have any W's or L's you want to bring?
Well, I think for W's, a big W in more of the entertainment space, but I feel like movies are back. And going to the theater for the experiences, and with my background, just the idea that people want to go see Odyssey or Spider-Man or looking forward to other things, I think is really good for the summer. It's been very hot and nasty weather, and it's nice that there's those options. And it's a good, fun thing to, it's nice to see that type of excitement is back again. So that's a big W, awesome. I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I haven't exactly found the time to go see Spider-Man or Odyssey yet. Do you know how long they're going to be in theaters for? Because I do definitely want to carve some time out to do it.
Spider-Man, probably a while. See it in 3D if you can. It was pretty cool. Odyssey, I mean, it'll get nominated, so it'll come back out. If you can see it in an IMAX, highly recommend it.
Okay, definitely will do that. All right, couple of W's I want to list off, and these are kind of personal, kind of just thank yous to them. Want to give a W to Mike Pusateri, who is actor and comedian from Chicago, who I have actually done some work with on the other podcast that I do on the Cubs. Andy Dolan will have him on as a guest sometime. He is a Cubs season ticket holder that lives out in LA full time, but has a place here. And he was the one who invited me to the game on Wednesday against the Dodgers to see them sweep. So big W to Mike Pusateri for the ticket then. W to a couple friends of mine on the South Side. One to Mr. Pete Hand, who gave me a free ticket to the White Sox game on Sunday, and to White Sox Twitter icon, TikTok extraordinaire, Missy Carroll, who kind of saved my life during the rain delay and letting me get some charge on her phone when my phone was dying. So to all three of you guys, W's to you guys. And you know what? Let me throw in a fourth one as well, too. We've gone real long here, Adam, and I really appreciate your patience and everything. So a W to you as well.
No, a W to you. Most people tell me to stop talking by now, so this has been a big W. I've been having so much fun. I don't get to talk about the Cubs this much in one sitting. No one wants to hear it. So so this has been great. I'd love to come back down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I'll have you on sometime with me and John and everything. We'll do a 3-man show. He might try to move it on a little bit faster than this, but we got a lot out today that we were able to hash out. So I'm fully on board with that for sure. No L's real come to mind. Do you have any L's for anyone? There might be one that pops up for me, but I can't really.
Let's give an L to Brewers fans, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because they didn't do very much during the trade deadline, and
good call.
They had an opportunity to make a statement, and this is the year to make the statement, and they didn't. And you never know what goes on behind the closed doors, but it said a lot. It's like, no, if we don't win this year, maybe next year we're not going all in. And it sent a message. It really sent a message. We sometimes complain that we don't do enough at the trade deadline. I guarantee you that Jed would never do so little if the Cubs were in first place. Guaranteed.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, man. Yeah, that has been like a big point of contention for people talking about the Brewers, saying that why did they not make the big Scooble with all the prospects that they have and everything? Obviously, I'm much happy about that, because if they wound up doing that, that would have put the division away for them basically at that point. They left the door wide open for us to come through. So hopefully, maybe you know what we're talking about, taking the L's here. Maybe if we happen to, well, I don't know if the schedule is going to work out. It would be nice if we could clinch the division head to head against them, and then fly an L on the flag like they did to us last year when they beat us in the playoffs.
I think they learned their lesson.
Right. Yeah. For
I
sure.
think they learned their lesson.
All right. I can't think of any L's, and I know we're running long here, so we'll wrap it up here with our upcoming series predictions. We got 3 in Washington against the Nationals. Kind of a pesky team this year that I don't remember earlier this year. That's who the Cubs opened with at Wrigley.
Yeah.
And
wasn't a fun series.
Was not a fun series at all. I thought going into the first homestand of that year, with them playing 3 against the Nationals and 3 against the Angels, I predicted 6-0 for that stretch. And I could not have been more wrong about it. Looked pretty good against the Angels, and the Angels aren't all that great. Nationals, maybe we underestimated them a little bit because they're hanging around there. The pitching matchups for this series, it's going to be Shota Imanaga versus Jake Irvin, David Peterson versus a guy that we used to love seeing a lot as a Cardinal, Miles Michaelis, who Cubs have beat up on over the years. And then Kevin Gausman in his second start as a Cub, taking on Cade Cavalli, who I believe started on opening day for the Nationals at Wrigley. Couple stats on the Nationals I found and dug up. Since the All-Star break, they're 11-12, plus 7 run differential. They're 5th in weighted runs created plus at 119. Cubs are right ahead of them at 4th in 120. Tied for third in MLB in home runs with 33. But pitching is where they kind of lack. They are 26th in ERA since the All-Star break. They do have a hitter that is kind of like right on par with where PCA is at in CJ Abrams this year. And he's really turned it on in the second half. He has the highest OPS and the highest WRC plus in the National League of any hitter. A guy who has gone ice cold for them, however, has been one of their best hitters from the first half in James Wood, who is now at a 620 OPS and a 70 RC plus for the second half of the season. So with all that considered, how are we feeling about the 3 games against the Nationals?
You know, we should expect to win the series, but Cubs have an issue where they can go toe-to-toe with aces, and then the pitchers they should beat look like aces. It's just like, it's been like, I can't explain it. So hopefully 2-3, maybe a sweep. I mean, the fact that they've played under 500 since the break is the only thing I'm looking at, because you can't judge records anymore or strength of schedule after that. The Cubs get a good day off rest. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, because they've been in such a win groove that, like,
true.
You know, I didn't even realize. Why am I not going? I can take the train down.
Take the train down there, exactly. Yeah,
I literally could. I have to look at I almost did it for Baltimore, and but I might have to look into that. But see if a friend wants to go or something. But I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the pitching, solid pitching for us. Peterson's been, he's been a number 2. He's been like a number 2.
He's been, outside of that one start against the Cardinals where they lit him up, he's been fantastic for the Cubs. He's done his job pretty well.
David Peterson Armstrong. So we got it.
David Peterson Armstrong, exactly. I think I'm also going to say 2 out of 3 for the Cubs. I think they possibly lose the first game of the series just because the Nats have had a proficiency for hitting home runs. Shota has a bit of a tendency to give them up sometimes. They might beat them up in this game. I think that the second game will be a pretty high-scoring game with Miles Michaelis on the mound for the Nationals. That, as I said, a guy the Cubs have beat up on pretty well. Maybe a little bit of a challenge for David Peterson, although some hitters he's probably familiar with from his time with the Mets.
That's interesting. PCA is going to be the guy to watch because there's a lot of questions right now with, him DHing. And I'm trying to think what else. Bregman, I think, is going to have a good series. I think something's clicking.
Okay.
And Bregman's getting to a point where I almost want to see him at the plate or PCA. He's getting to that point right now.
I think I remember too something about Bregman that he has some kind of connection to that area. I think he has some relative that worked within the what they used to be called the Washington Commanders football team in their operation when they were still the R words, we'll say. And I think he might have some family in town for that game. So that's a good call there. All right, then we move to the back home where we play the Cardinals for 3 games. Don't know the exact pitching options for the Cardinals yet. I looked on the Score app, and it has Matthew Liberatore listed for the Friday game, but nothing yet for Saturday and Sunday. But we got Clay Holmes making his second start as a Cub against Liberatore. Then Matthew Boyd versus TBD, Shota Imanaga versus TBD. We'll see what kind of stuff TBD has. They were a little rough last time out.
That's true. They're really an unknown. I think we're going to sweep them. I am just so sick of the Cardinals this year and their fans trying to be relevant in what's clearly a Cubs-Brewers rivalry. And it's really funny to me.
Are you on board with me, by the way, that I've come to hate the Brewers more than I hate the Cardinals these days?
Yeah, and that's really important for sports. You have to evolve.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been since 2007, it's been more of a Cubs-Brewers than a Cubs-Cardinals.
Okay, That's right. We had this conversation not long ago. I remember. Yeah.
I mean, 15, 16, all that, but like it's always been Cubs and Cardinals have been opposite sides when they're good and bad. So, and then in 15, we ended that rivalry in my mind. We beat them. It wasn't even close. In the playoffs, the meeting, you win the rivalry. You know, they're just like, I don't care about them, and these fans think like they matter, and I'm like, you really don't.
Well, and you know what? They kind of. I'm glad that the last time the Cubs were in St. Louis, they were able to win that series pretty handily. Probably should have been a 4-game sweep with how that one game they lost played out, but that kind of put them in a position where they had to sell. And now we don't have to deal with Lars Nootbaar anymore. Mm-hmm. There's another guy they moved off of that I'm blanking on right now. But you know, they're a worse team now than they were when we were down in St. Louis.
We don't know that prospects are you don't know like there's that's why I'm like strength of schedule. You just don't know. I think you're right, but you don't always know. I still think we sweep them and just it's really they don't matter to me. I really they just don't. It would be nice if they could, but it's you know, it's find another team to feud with. I
really want to agree with you and commit to the sweep on that. And I'm not saying I won't, but there's one thing I do want to see first. I just want to see what are Clay Holmes's career numbers against the Cardinals, or at least in recent history. Because I do feel really good about them winning the games, you know, even not knowing who's pitching for the Cardinals. I do feel really good with Boyd and Showdown the mound, especially the Boyd game, because he's had some really nice performances against the Cardinals as a Cub. Let me see here. So against the Cardinals, not pretty. 2-2 record, 5.28 ERA. We'll see. Hopefully the wind blows in that day. Regardless, you know what? It's a worse Cardinal team. I'm gonna go ahead and say that they'll sweep. And you know what? Matthew Liberatore on the mound. The Cubs beat him up pretty good when they saw him in St. Louis. So
here's what I think we'll do with that game. Here's my guess. Open with Ryan Rollison for 2 innings.
Okay, I could see that. Especially, you know what? That might work out pretty well if they're like still iffy on how long they want to go with Clay Holmes for. So I could definitely see that happening.
You do that, and the second Holmes isn't doing anything, Javier Assad or Colin Ray comes in for the rescue.
Gotcha. Hey, you know what? A little bit of encouraging thing on Clay Holmes for what it's worth. So overall, he has a 5.28 ERA, but going back to 2023, because it gives the year by year on Baseball Reference of what his ERA is every year. It was 0 in 2023. That was one appearance. 0 in 2024. That was one appearance. 2 start in 2025, a 3 ERA. 1 start this year with the Mets against the Cardinals, 3.18 ERA. So at least in recent years, he's actually been better than his career numbers indicate.
And he also had a very bad infield of the Mets. Not
that too. I mean, we found that out. We found that out with David Peterson Armstrong. So yeah.
So maybe Clay Holmes Armstrong next game. We'll see. I think let's just take one series at a time. I think the good thing about the Cubs right now is I've never felt yet last year this confident about. I'm like, I think there will be October baseball for the Cubs. I really do.
Yeah.
I think like I don't want to knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it, but like I'm not saying winning the division or first seed in the wild card. I'm just saying I think they're at a place and they're too good not to have a playoff game. And that's a nice feeling in mid-August. And these next 2 series will cement what side of the playoffs they're on. These are really important series.
That's a good thought there, because if you look at like after they fell out of first place last year and they kind of got to a point where like you were just kind of settling for a wild card spot.
Yeah. You
didn't feel totally secure in them beating out the Padres for that top spot. Like really, because it took until the second to last game of the year for them to clinch it. So, I mean, yeah, with the last series of the year, it was still wide open. Yeah, it feels a lot more secure now that there's like, you got separation between where they're at and where the Diamondbacks and the Phillies are at. So, it's good to have that separation. Yeah.
Last year it was, they scored 3 runs. Will they hold this lead with the bullpen? Because we know they're not going to score any more runs tonight. This is it. Every game was like this nail biter that didn't have to be. This year, we've had some close, crazy games already this month, but I just don't think we're going to relive the August and September we had last year. I think they're much better right now than they were a year ago.
For sure. Look, hopefully, I wonder how it plays out because, like, I would like for them to get to a point where there's not as many high-pressure games down the stretch.
Right.
But if they're still pursuing the division, they're all going to be high-pressure games. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. But
do you know what the last series is?
Yeah, I do. It's going to be intense because it's a Red Sox team playing with their hair on fire right now. That, those two, all 3 of those games are probably going to be important for both teams with where they're at playoff positioning wise. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will. It'll be fun. I just hope it's a bit of a relaxed 6 weeks ahead where it's like, okay, like they lost this game. It's okay. We'll do this. We'll do, what I mean? It's one of those. It's just like, I can't have this past week. We can't have every week with these type of games.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It was a very nice week. It was one of the best for the Cubs in a long, long time. But yeah, it's not one of those things that you can expect to see all the time for sure. And honestly, it may have even been more impressive than either of the 10-game winning streaks were. Just for the fact that like they beat who they beat. Yeah. Like having the Dodgers in there is damn impressive, Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, Adam, I really appreciate you jumping on with me and spending the last 3 hours and 10 minutes damn near here talking Cubs. I could probably go for another hour with you if you really wanted to. But, I know, all 125 of our viewers right now are probably wondering when this thing's going to end. So we're going to wrap here and, hopefully, the Cubs keep it rolling and stay hot and, do what we said by winning a couple series upcoming here against the Nationals and the Cardinals and, keep that rolling against the White Sox and all the way through to, when that Brewers series comes up at the end of the month and maybe be within striking distance of the division going into it. But thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Adam, for joining me. To everyone doing so that stuck it out, really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Let's fly that W. Absolutely. Thank you. Anytime. Would love to have you on again. Let's fly that W, people. Yep.
Fly that W.